I was thinking about it. I'm an introvert. Like I'm a painfully and always have been a painfully sort of interior person.
You can change that as much as you want. If you packed everything up, like cut the internet off and moved to a new town, like who would you be there? If you wake up every day, you have a capacity to be great.
Ask you something. Is the next 30 seconds guaranteed?
Yeah, never.
Never.
You have to answer every day when you go to bed. Were you a good person? Were you kind? Did you care about others? Or were you selfish and only thought about what you wanted?
Continuing to ask questions in like a kind or positive way.
If I can create a spot where people can come together.
Stay off the internet, stop researching, because all you're going to do is get in your head.
I did what everybody does when they're about to die, I started praying.
This might be my last fork in the road.
Get busy living or get busy dying.
Exactly. Welcome to our journey,
Where open dialogue and curiosity are the only requirements.
whether it be serious or lighthearted,
Music, heroing stories,
aliens.
or politics or comedic debauchery.
We attempt to peel the layers back and connect together in a way that's genuine and honest.
Without any script or idea what the hell is going to happen.
This is organic, curious, human interaction.
We thank you for joining us and ask if you enjoy the show, please do all the things that social media requires for its more ridiculous algorithms.
The like button, follow, subscribe, comment, and review.
And although we may have a disdain for algorithms, it's how the internets work.
But if you have as much disdain for them as we do, you can visit the website, chroniccuriosity.com. The link is in the description. You can find all of our stuff there.
And the store, Tony, which you can pick yourself up some fantastically curious merchandise.
Welcome to Chronic Curiosity.
And here we go. No, not fact check you.
The Dave stories.
Yeah. No, that's all good.
Coming on the podcast.
Oh, Dave. No. I got enough liquor to probably see if we can.
Dave is dead.
Oh, that's a bummer. Biggest thing is just to keep this thing like you want to like
Fist.
like right here, and then have it like angled right there. So wherever you can adjust it if you want to sit back or whatever you want to do.
Check.
I'm used to the old David Clark's.
Oh, I got one of those. I don't think I could plug it into my stuff though. That sounds kind of really quiet.
Those things are expensive, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, super expensive.
Yeah.
That's what. Don't they usually have those in like the helicopters and shit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my pair. Or I got my helmet.
Yeah.
That's like the one thing I insist on keeping was the helmet.
Yeah.
They let you keep it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's sweet.
Oh, yeah. Make a bong out of it one day.
That's not the
bad. It's got the full mask and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And the visor.
The
so you could really get into it.
Like gas mask bong? That's not a bad idea.
Just baking yourself.
Yeah, one day.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
One day.
One day. Someday. Well, when it's legal, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it. Dusty, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah. Well,
the Wayne Country Rucking, I can't remember the name of it now.
Wayne Country Ruck Club.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's real
Terribly hard name.
Yep.
Very difficult.
Yeah. It was a real doozy putting that together.
Yeah. But you're doing it. You see, it seems to be growing every day.
Yeah, surprisingly, it's fairly organic. Co-founder with Austin, but yeah, it was pretty incredible. It literally just started because we're like, well, we should just name this since there's enough of us showing up. So
Right.
literally just put a name on it, put it on Facebook, and then next thing you know, there's like 25 official members, but like probably, I don't know, 350 followers, and it started 2 months ago. Yeah.
That's more followers than we have, Tony.
Well, hey, listen to this podcast.
Yeah. How did you start? I mean, how did you get into that? Not to be like too like rigid, like this. There's no.
Yeah.
You said you've listened, so there's no rules, obviously.
Right.
So not to be too rigid, but
Where's Rick at? That's what I'm waiting for him to jump out of the closet.
Choke you out.
No. So I powerlifted for quite a while. You know, back when we were lifting together and stuff. And then obviously the kid came along. Fitness just completely fell off the table. Mostly because like, I don't know, powerlifting didn't match my like life goals. Like, you know, you're chasing the kid around the park and you just feel like hell all the time. You know what I mean? Your knees hurt, your back hurt. And I'm like, dude, I'm like 28. Like, this ain't right. which granted I was doing a lot of it wrong. So it's not like powerlifting as a whole is wrong, but so I just kind of dropped it. And then, you know, raising the kid and work and stuff, I didn't do anything for like 5 or 6 years. And then I remember me and Holly were in Cancun. It was like spring of 19. I'm like, fuck, I'm fat.
Skinny fat?
Just skinny fat.
That's the worst. You'd almost rather be fat. So like, oh, look at that fat guy.
Yeah, I felt like a piece of shit. So then that summer, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get back. And, you know, typical hit the gym twice and not go back and then do this. I'm going to run. That didn't last.
Realize how much all that sucks.
Yeah, so then I was talking to my buddy Lone Wolf, which I met him through Tony, and he was telling me he's training for these Go Ruck events, and he's like, they sounded terrible. You know, he's telling me all about them, you know, all the push-ups and all this stuff, and I'm like, nah, that's good, man. I already went through basic. I don't need to do that. I was like, but shit, I'll come ruck with you. You know, that's fun. I like to hike and stuff. So we literally just started rucking, and I was just like just getting him ready for the events mostly, and one thing led to another. Man, I was hooked on it. Like we did it for a year straight, like 2-3 times a week, and then I recruited Austin. He started coming. And then, you know, Corey started coming. Next, you know, we're all doing these events, which I didn't even want to do. We just kind of, I just got into them just because. And then it kind of steamrolled from there. And then, of course, Lone Wolf just quits doing events, gets me all into the sport, and then quits.
So he's not even doing events anymore?
No, not really. No, he got into trail running.
Pulled the Tokyo Sayonara on
Yeah, yeah. So then I'm like, well, shit, man, you got me into the sport. I already bought all the gear and stuff. So then I'm like, well, I guess I'll recruit some people. So then I got Austin and Corey, but then it was like, we need to do this like more exponentially because it's very linear. You know, you recruit me, I recruit you. We need to get a little bit bigger scale. So then literally just started the club, and one thing led to another, man. It kind of blew up pretty quick.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe you got Corey out rucking.
No, I know.
I remember they were like, there's no way he's going to go ruck. It's
I can't believe it
cardio.
either. Yeah.
I didn't think he would like it.
He seems to like it.
Yeah.
I think he just likes it because it's painful.
Yeah.
He's weird
like that. in a like a butt plug kind of way. Yeah.
38 millimeter.
I mean, physically, he's not really built for the sport. He's like a bodybuilder riding an ostrich. So he's just not. It's not really his thing.
That's a mental depiction I've never really had, but it's
accurate.
Dangerously accurate.
Yeah.
Very accurate.
It's been a wild ride, though, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a different because I know I've mentioned it a couple times in the podcast before, and it's like usually it's you guys go Saturday mornings, at least when I've gone, and usually we record these on Saturdays. So it's like I go and do that, and the first couple of times I was like, "Oh God, dude, like that's terrible."
Yeah.
And in the same sense, like where Corey maybe likes it because it was like, "Oh, this really sucks." It shows you how out of shape you are, and it's only 2 hours.
Yeah.
And you're like, and you hurt for days. You're like, wow. And all I did was just went hiking and carried a backpack that had a little bit of weight in it.
On paper, it sounds real easy.
Yeah, until you go out there and do it. I'm sure I would probably imagine like the terrain in some places make it a little easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when it hit me, it was like, oh, like it also makes that correlation with like guys in the military. They're out like, oh, they're carrying like 4 times as much weight, and that's like this is how they just live their lives. Like,
yeah, I think,
like
I think the average infantry soldier right now, it carries between 80 and 100 depending on their pack out, and that's like for ops that are they're doing 12 miles through Afghanistan. It's insane what they're carrying now.
Crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely mind blowing.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask what events do you have coming up?
So the weekend of June 4th through the 6th, we've got it's the D-Day event. So I guess we should probably explain. So Go Ruck, basically what it is it's like a Green Beret inspired fitness program. So you start at the lowest level, you've got the basics. So it's 5 to 6 hours, kind of your typical military event, push-ups, sit-ups, flutter kicks, that kind of stuff. It's kind of like an intro to Go Ruck. You're going to cover like 6 to 10 miles carrying a pack of 20 to 30 pounds based on your body weight. So the 150 pounds is kind of the cutoff. Then from there you progress into like a tough, which is like a 12-hour event. You're talking probably 16 to 20 miles, significantly more PT, and then kind of the top is the heavy. It goes on past that, but that's kind of where most people draw the line. That's a 24-hour event, 40 miles.
Some David Goggins shit.
Yeah, yeah. And then like the who's who in rucking, if you haven't got your what they call your bolts, which is like you do a heavy, and then the next day you do a tough, and the next day you do a basic, so you get like 4 or 5 hours in between each one. So like the who's who gets their bolts, right? So you do all 3 events. I don't have my bolts, by the way.
What patch do you get when you do all 3 of them, like back to back? Like,
yeah, you get so each event comes with a patch. Like that's your kind of your ribbon of participation, whatever. So if you do all 3 of them, you get your a special patch that has
not just participation, right? Yeah, you have to complete it.
Yeah.
Be clear, it's not a participation.
Yeah. But that's called getting your bolts because it literally has the event with like 3 lightning bolts. So you get all 3 of them.
And is that the like you do all 3 consecutively?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like
that sounds so gross.
What is it? Basically 2 straight days in a row. You just do.
Yeah, you're talking like 70 to 80 miles, depending on the event.
Okay.
In let's see, it's a 24, a 12, and a 6-hour event. So with minimal breaks in between. So it's pretty involved. You can get through a basic with no training. You can maybe make it through a tough, depending on how athletic you are. After that, you really need to train. It just there's things that happen to your tendons that you're just not going to experience in normal life. So training is definitely required.
Yeah, didn't you say foot care is pretty important?
Yeah, and I learned that lesson last month. I've never had any problems with blisters, and then we just did this particular event. It was in Pittsburgh, and it was literally just miles and miles of uphill and downhill. And the uphill was fine, but coming downhill when it was hotter than I thought, so I was probably a little overdressed, and I'm just sweating a ton, and just that constant friction on my feet, just blister city. And then we had another event the next morning. So trying to work, it was good training really because you had to try to work through the blisters. So learning how to pop them, learning like how to do proper foot care without having proper, ways to do foot care. Yeah. So it was good.
Yeah, it was good. All I can think is like it takes a special type of brain to be able to like, oh yeah, this is what I do for fun.
Yeah,
it's not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. For me, it was like, like I said, I was out of shape and coming quick upon 35, and it's like, man, do I just coast into old age or like do I fight back here? And I felt like literally at 35, like that was kind of like the threshold, like the what I did for the next 5 years would kind of set the tone for how my 40s and 50s were going to go. So I was like, man, fuck old age, like let's get one more go at this. And so I literally just started off slow. That first basic I went to, it was a 9/11 event over in Shanksville, which was where that Flight 93 crashed. So went there. It was a pretty somber experience, because that's the thing about Go Ruck events. Each one is themed. So sometimes they're mostly centered around like historic war battles. So 9/11, Mogadishu, that sort of thing. So the 9/11 memorial, we did some PT, and then we rucked 3 miles to the crash site. Got to tour the memorial. They read off all the names of all the victims. So it was like it's pretty intense. So it just kind of really struck a chord, and I didn't train at all for that other than just rucking, but no PT whatsoever. It just went in completely cold turkey, and they didn't hammer us, but they hammered me enough to go, oh, I need to get in shape because this is more than I thought. And so then that kind of kicked the whole thing off.
Got you, dude. Talk to, well, if anyone listens to it, but the listeners about the cadre, and then what is it, the coupons and.
Yeah, so the events ran, but they call them cadre. What they are, they're all retired Green Berets. There's a couple Army Rangers in the mix and some Navy SEALs, but mostly Green Berets. It's founded by a former Green Beret, so he pretty much recruited a lot of his buddies. But so they know how to put an event on. That's their whole, the bread and butter of the Green Berets is to recruit and train like a third world country force, like the Afghan Commandos, and turn them in, like basically take a bunch of nobodies and turn them into an extreme fighting force. And so that's what they do to you at these events. You show up by yourself, but you're all one team. So the first event I did, there's 74 people, and no one knows what they're doing. Most people have never done it before. And he just starts pulling the stuff out of his car. There's 2 cadre at that one, but he just starts pulling out these, what he calls coupons. And I'm like, well, what the hell's a coupon? And it's like just sandbags after sandbags. I mean, like, 40s, 60s, 80-pound sandbags, 120-pound sandbag. And then he pulls these things called litters out, which are like troop carriers for they basically look like this table. But
stretcher.
Like a stretcher, yeah. So these are like the they call them portable ones because they fold up. So he's got like this bag of rocks that's like 250 pounds in the middle of it. And then you as a team have to try to figure out how to get all of this stuff from point A to point B. And he doesn't tell you anything. So it's just all on you, and it's just go, go, go. And so then he puts these time requirements like, hey, how long do you guys think it'll take to get to this point? I have no idea. And so he sets you up for failure basically, because if you fail, then you owe.
You do more work.
You do more work. Right. But they're your timestamps. So like you're accountable for your own things. So, but it's awesome because at first it's complete disarray. And then by the end of the event, everyone's just like streamlined, working together. You've got like systems of rotation because you can't realistically carry that weight by yourself the whole time. So you have to figure out how to switch in, sub in, and like it all just kind of comes together by the end of the event, and everybody's kind of just like one machine. It's awesome to be part of.
It's like you have no other choice but develop some kind of teamwork strategy.
Yeah,
work
or die.
together. Or I guess that's another choice. Is to just not do it, not make it.
So it's really cool, man. And every event's different, like I said. So they really, in some cadres different than others, but they really go out of their way to really try to. You're in that event when you're doing it. So we did the Battle of the Bulge, which is a winter battle. So I don't know if you know the details of it. Basically, World War II, the Germans attack the front line. I mean, it's like the battle lasted between December and January of, I think it was 44. Most of the people were like, all the officers are on leave for vacation. Like it's Christmas time. So people are like going to France and stuff on leave. There's nobody manning the line, and the Germans attack. And I mean, we're talking like 10-degree weather, like everyone's frozen. And so
where was this at? You know,
the actual battle, or it was, gosh, I'm drawing blank.
Castle
Bastogne.
Can you see that on map? Just like my brain can like.
Yeah, Bastogne, Belgium.
I mean, because they get winters there.
Oh yeah, real bad. Yeah.
I don't know how.
Yeah, and so you gotta, you paint the picture. The ground's completely frozen. You got a couple feet of snow on the ground. There's no machinery back then, so the guys are digging foxholes in frozen ground with like little e-tools.
Tanks, and that's it.
Yeah, they have tanks, right?
Okay, where's Belgium at on the?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not what we want to see. I'm trying to remember exactly where Belgium's at.
Yeah, so see, like on that scale. Top, it's just west of Germany.
Oh yeah, okay, just south of the Netherlands, west of Germany. Yeah, so I mean, just northeast of France. So they're right there on the. I mean, that's damn near as far as like, what latitude goes. Like that's northern North America.
Right.
Like Maine type shit.
Yeah, it's cold. So basically.
Ooh. Yeah, okay.
It's basically the close of the war. We've got all the shipping routes contained because we're holding everything west of that, right? So the Germans invade. They're basically trying to punch through our line so they can get resupplies.
Right.
So it was completely unexpected. Anyways, they punch through. Battle lasts for 30 days. That ends up basically ending the war. But so we're going through this event, and I don't know anything about it really. I read like the Wikipedia page, but
right.
So the his cadre hand, he's like notorious hard ass, but he's like, I'm gonna give you this battle like you'll never experience it on a TV screen. So he's literally got us out there, and we're low crawling across. I mean, we've already been going like 8 hours, and we're on this like frozen soccer field, and he's got us low crawling because he's like basically. I want you to know what the 101st Airborne, all these guys went through. So he's like, you're holding the line, but you're losing. So you have to keep retreating tactically. So it's like me and Austin and like 4 other guys. We've got all those sandbags with us, and we're low crawling. Like 3 of us low crawl for like 10 yards, while the other one's like fake fire, and then the other 3 low crawl. We do this for hundreds of yards. And this ground... It must have been like a dog park or something where people had ran all over it when it was like real muddy, because then it froze. And so it's like serrated. And I'm dressed to be warm. I'm not really dressed to like crawl on the ground. You know what I mean? Right. So I'm not prepared for this at all. Oh my God. It was one of the most miserable things I've ever done.
It sounds brutal. What you said what was the temperatures when you guys were doing it?
Like 10.
Oh, that shit's hard.
It was bad. And like I said, it was like 8 hours in. Around 6 hours, pretty much everybody's water bladder froze. So we're no water.
It gets in the middle of the night too.
Yeah, oh,
right?
yeah. It starts. A tough starts at like 9 p.m. and it runs to about between 7 and 9 a.m. It's like a 10 to 12 hour event, depending on how it goes.
So all toughs are in the middle of the night then?
Yeah. Yeah, they do that on purpose to disorient you, and so you have you're not allowed to wear a watch or have your phone, so you have no track of time, and it's just work. So it is effective, man, because I know I flipped on Band of Brothers like the day after I got done. It just happened to be on the History Channel because it's like, that Centennial or whatever, and they're like, it was just so real. After doing that, I could feel like I would have never even paid attention to the battle, but I'm like seeing these guys crawl around. I'm like, oh man, I've been there. My knees are still purple. It's like, oh, yeah, that tough was beyond difficult.
The only benefit was you didn't have anybody shooting at you at the time, at least.
Yeah.
But still, that might almost make it worse. I feel like, because at least like you have like this inkling that like,
right.
Oh my God, I could die any minute. Like you kind of forget about all the other bullshit.
Yeah,
I would imagine. I would think.
Yeah,
but that's
we were just running
to do it for fun.
Pride mostly.
How much time did you spend preparing for this stuff? Because that's your first one, correct?
Yeah, it was my first stuff. So the basic was in September, and so I immediately signed up for the tough. That was in like I think January 22nd. So I gave myself like a couple weeks to kind of just rest up, and then so maybe like 12 weeks, something like that. But it's like, how do you really train for something you've never done? And like you kind of have an idea, but you really don't. So I found some guides online. I tried to follow them as best I could. Nothing against the people that made the guides, but like they're a good, like, this is what to expect, but they're not like a good, this is how to train.
Right.
And there's really not much out there. So I sent Tony some literature the other day. I've went way too deep into this stuff, but I did like,
it sounds like that's there's
a
gap that needs filled.
So I did this deep dive because as far as like the Go Ruck as a sport, there's really nothing out there. I mean, so I went into like military rucking, and I was like, well, they know what they're doing. So I found this guy, Mike Provost. Is it Provost? I think it is.
I think so.
Yeah. So he wrote a ton of articles. He's trained a bunch of like SEAL types and this stuff. So he's got like a white paper on if you're going to ruck, this is how to train for it. And I mean, it's brilliant. So he's done all these experiments throughout like 20 years of work history, and it's kind of counterintuitive to what you would think for rucking. So like upper body strength plays a significant role in rucking, like more than lower body, because core strength is where your whole, keeps it all together.
You're holding all that weight up and balancing.
Yeah. So he did the study where he took people and he had them do only lower body, only upper body, and then full body. And obviously full body was the biggest carryover, but upper body only significantly outperformed like working only your legs, which I would have never thought. And endurance, like,
I'd imagine this isn't just like bicep curls and bench press. It's like, actually like core work and all the stabilization and
and he recommended, they're basically pretty simple programs that everybody knows, like your typical 5x5 stuff, just full body, squats, deadlift, overhead press, stuff you're already gonna do.
Yeah, but it was like multiple compounds.
Yeah,
so it was what, 2 days of those per week. Mm-hmm. But they were like squats and deadlifts and like those things on the same day. So you have these big compound movements.
Well, I feel like too that might, I mean, this is just my brain thinking, like your central nervous system, like training, like not only your muscles, but in your tendons along with those, but like your central nervous system be able to like the impact and like the pressure of, talk about powerlifting, like you go in and you do like a max effort day on, something, you really push it hard. Like a lot of people that don't, if you've never really weightlifted, and you go into the gym and maybe run the treadmill or do some machines, but if you never like power lifted, there's something weird that happens with your body when you put it through like its max effort on like a certain thing. Like your central nervous system just doesn't know what to do with it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? So like maybe I wonder if that plays into it, like doing like the squats and the deadlifts, all those things, and just sounds like you're pushing your body beyond normalcy. So like being able to shock your system and being able to deal with that.
Yeah, and that's where it's tough, because having powerlifted in the past, it's all, you're chasing numbers, right? And it's you have to tell yourself, don't get swept up into this, because like the next day is endurance day, and you're going to spend 2 hours throwing around a 60-pound sandbag or an 80-pound sandbag. And like, so you have to train for your sport. It's just like a football player. Like, it doesn't matter what you deadlift on Monday. It's how you play on Friday. And so like, it was hard to train myself, and I'm still working on it. But like, so I lift heavy twice a week, but I don't lift that heavy because like you have to leave a couple reps in the tank because the next day is endurance, and it's terrible. Like, I just do this randomized thing. I take, I'm up to like 4 exercises. So I go, okay, this week I'm going to do 500 reps. And I just randomly pick 4 movements. I use my phone to generate it. So there's no bias whatsoever. I got 30, like a pool of 30 movements that I could be expected to do. And it'll just randomly generate the 4. And I got to figure out how to get to 500 reps. And next week's 600 reps. And so, and that's all with a 60-pound sandbag or worse. Like I have tire flips on there and stuff. So like, sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's like 3 hours, but like, and that's how the events are. So you just have to train like that.
Sounds like my worst nightmare. Just completely randomized. You have no idea what's going to happen, and it's gonna fucking suck.
Yeah.
Period.
And it, man, for the first, before I was lifting, I was just doing that kind of stuff, and it takes a long time to just get used to being like that pukey feeling.
And
I don't
get used to that.
It catch. I puked the other day doing it. It catches you, but
I puke all the time.
You have
stuff
to.
Like that. There's no way.
Yeah, I'm a puker for sure when it comes to that.
When it comes to cardio, I am.
Yeah.
I remember it was funny. You said something about how do you train for, something you've never done before. This isn't quite the same, and it wasn't quite as brutal, I can imagine. But I remember like the first time I did a CrossFit competition. The only time. First.
Yeah, you're not built for that.
First and last. Yeah, because obviously I'm more of a powerlifter type. But I tried it the once, and it was like I had done some like CrossFit workouts, like to try to like prepare for it.
Sure.
I was not prepared for it. Like there was one time I did 2 workouts in a day, and if anyone doesn't know what CrossFit, like you do like 3 workouts in like it's like what typically an event's like 5 or 6 hours or something like that. And I did an RX, which means like the hardest part, whatever. It was not good. It was not good at all. I was there and people were like, "Oh, how long have you been doing CrossFit?" Because I don't look like. I was like, "Oh, like 7 weeks," and they're like kind of laughed. Like, "Oh," I'm like, "No, it's not a good idea." I know. By the 3rd workout, my legs stopped working.
Yeah, just rubbing the rhabdo out.
No, like I remember at one point, like it was my one event when they told us like because there's like 3 different events and like there's different things throughout it. Like the last event was the one event where I was like, "Oh, I can do good on that," because it was like a strength thing. After all the work, of course they mechanic like or schedule like this. They did all the work. The very last thing you do was find your 1 rep max of I think it was like a jerk press or something like that, or a clean and jerk. Yeah, it was a clean and jerk. So I'm like, oh, that's where I'm going to help the team out,
right?
Because it was like a team thing. I was like, that's where I'm going to shine because that's like I can move some weight. Yeah, by the time I got to my legs, I literally collapsed on the ground. Right before we did this, and I couldn't move. Like, wife's screaming at me. Like, Corey was there. He was like, "Get off the fucking ground, you pussy!" I'm like, "No, I can't move. Like, I literally can't move. I don't know what you want from me." Like, I ended up doing like I was shooting for like over 300. I barely got 135 because I just couldn't. Like, I finally got like there was like a time limit, and I finally got to the point where I was like, I couldn't even do 135. Like I can fucking curl 135. like I was like, yeah. So I was like, you have to prepare sometimes.
Yeah, you do. You do.
What you do, or you end up getting into trouble.
Well, and that's where the biggest disconnect is. I see that all these guides they have you doing basically HIIT training, and it's like even Brute Force is guilty of it. They sell their sandbags, and it's cool that they put out free workouts, but everything's like as many reps as you can in 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Well, when you go to the event and it's do 1,000 burpees, that HIIT didn't do shit for you. I mean, and that's where it took me to do a couple events before I go, oh, it's not how fast I can do 200 push-ups. How long can I do push-ups for that matters? And so I've completely changed the way I train because it's all about just being able to survive for long periods of time. And that's where the strength part of it comes in. And I don't think people train enough. Strength makes you durable. And when you're pushing yourself so far past fatigue, if you're not durable, you're going to get injured. And so that peak strength, it has to be there.
Right. It's almost, even sometimes it's almost like a high endurance, like a high intensity endurance. Those are the two very opposite things, and that you have to. That sounds gross.
So
That's why I didn't do it.
It is well fun.
Because I was like, you know what? Maybe you're
Tony's
right.
coming in June. He's like,
God.
That's why I knew when
he'd
you
do
talk,
fine though.
You're doing.
he would do fine.
So you're doing the 2 like power days. You're doing 2 endurance days, and then it's what 2 cardio days,
2 ruck days.
2 ruck days.
Yeah. So I do 1 long ruck, which is like our Saturday. So when I say long, it's fairly not that long. Anywhere between 6 and 20 miles. It just depends. Usually, so you're talking like, it all depends on where I'm at in my training, but 30 to 45 pounds in my ruck, and then 60, 80 pound sandbag. And that's usually kind of shared amongst the group. We've kind of peaked it up a little bit lately. So we try to do at least 160 for every 3 people, just so everybody gets a little bit of the flavor. And then I do, what's called an interval ruck on Tuesdays. That's just pure weight. So it's literally 130, 150 pounds, and I'll go from intervals, depending on where I'm at in the training, like 10 to 15 minutes, take a 2-minute break, 10 to 15, and it's just getting used to carrying that weight, because on these events, like, going 16, 20 miles isn't shit really, but when you're doing it and you're carrying, I mean, I don't think we ever carry anything under 100 pounds on average, so you have to get used to walking real slow with heavy ass weight. So that's helped a ton, really.
It's hard to carry. Like, I know, being out there with you guys before, it's like, man, like, I can carry the weight, but I can't do it very fast.
No,
I get so winded. It's like, man, like, but you have to finish. You know what I mean? You got to get to where you're getting to at the same part. Like, I don't think people realize, like, you think 30, like, even for, at least for somebody like that works out, that's never done it. I knew it blew my mind.
Yeah.
I've said it plenty of times. Like, I'm well over 200 pounds, and that's lifting is what I do. But you think, oh, well, like, bring 30 pounds in a backpack, essentially. That's what you're doing. And like 30-pound ruck. I'm like, 30 pounds. Like, my head weighs 30 pounds.
Right.
It's like, okay, whatever. And then I put 30 pounds in the backpack. It's like, oh, okay, but, this isn't too bad. I can squat 500, like, what's 60 pounds?
Right.
And then about 20 minutes later, as you're hiking up this hill with 30 pounds in a bag and 60 pounds on your shoulders, like, oh.
Yeah.
Now I get it. Like, okay.
Yeah. We've done it for a long time, and I see stars all the time. Now, granted, when you do the events, it's usually in an urban setting, so it's flat as can be. Pittsburgh was the exception to that, but even then it wasn't that steep. Nobody trains like on that terrain we do, and that's why we do it, because I've got 2 hours on a Saturday, but I got 2 kids, a third on the way. I don't have time to go do 20 miles every Saturday, but I have time to do 6 really shitty ones. So that's why we kind of over train the miles, because nothing can beat those hills. I mean, if you can do 6 on those hills, you can do. I mean, we do a 12-miler on Mohican, and it still has some terrain, but it's not nearly. It feels the same to me. 12 and 6, it doesn't have those just severe rises and falls. So that's why we train like that. But yeah, the events are all flat, which it adds its own complexity, because carrying when it's flat is just so boring.
Yeah, it seems like they have their own little thing that they throw in there to make it interesting.
Yeah, it was fun though. I'm glad that I got to do it with a bunch of my buddies. I don't know that I would want to do an event all by myself. Even though you meet people when you get there, there's something, just the camaraderie of going with some of my best friends. It was incredible, and you can't quit then, because
because they make fun of you forever.
Yeah, I'd have to quit and move. Like immediately. I would have to. You know what I mean? And I know that's why Corey made it, because he was like, shit, I can't let these guys.
Oh, there's no way. Yeah, he's touching the head.
Yeah.
He'll break himself before.
But man, there was a time we were at like it was like hour 9 and a half, something like that. And the cadre was like, it must have been getting towards the end, because he's like, how can I fuck with these guys a little bit more? So we had 3 60-pound sandbags, and he carabiners them together. And so he makes this like snake. And I'm at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm pretty smoked. I'm going to hang back, I'm just going to like get the small shit I can grab and finish this out, And I hear someone call my name, and here's fucking Andy and the other Derniat, and they've got 2 of the 3, and they're like, where are you at? Because I'm the same height as them. So they want to make it like all. So first we were like going like, back to back to back, like carrying them like on our shoulder. I'm like, this isn't going to work. I don't have enough shoulder to carry like that. So we go like 3 wide, and we're going for miles. And I mean, I don't know how long I can carry a 60-pound sandbag for, but I would say a couple miles, and I'm like ready to take a break. And at one point, man, I'm like a drunk driver in between 2 white lines, and like I'm like leaning on him, and I'm coming over this way, and and I just have no control, man. And we were so tired, but we carried it, I don't know, miles, just miles and miles. And the only reason I didn't quit was because I got these 2 assholes beside me, and I'm like, I can't look like a pussy. So I'm just pure pride, you know what I mean? But it was awesome, man. I'll never forget it.
Well, if nothing else, it sounds like it's about the most practical training you could do for anything.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if as a normal person, like, if shit hits the fan and America turns into like Guatemala and we need to, migrate somewhere, at least you can carry some weight for long distances. Right?
Well, and that's what I just love about it. I mean, it applies to so many things. Like, oh, something's on fire and you need to get your kids out. That's what I do.
Right.
Like, oh, you want to go hike the Appalachian Trail, which is like a bucket list item for me. That's what I'm trained. I'm ready to go.
You can do the whole thing?
I want to, yeah. Whenever, it'll probably be when I'm older, but yeah, it's been a desire of mine, and the Pacific Trail, but it just fits my lifestyle, I think. You want to go backpacking for mule deer out west, like you're ready to go. All of these things, it just fits what I'm into. So it's not all doom and gloom though. Like, I mean, we'd like to do the sucky stuff, but we offer something for everybody. I think right after you guys kind of stopped coming, we decided, we had a couple people come to the Saturday events that were not ready for the event, that we call that the advanced ruck. So we started a beginner ruck. So
I didn't stop. I just haven't recently.
Yeah.
No, I'm ready to come. It's been busy.
Yeah, you gotta get ready for that
every single time I get consistent, then you leave for a weekend, and I'm like, and it throws me off.
Yeah. So we started Saturdays are advanced ruck, and that's just mostly for guys that have been doing it for a little while and they're like preparing for competition. Sundays, if we can get Sundays out, it's a beginner ruck. Bring the kids, play around in the water, take your time, couple miles. It's more of like just a fun event. And then we started doing like kind of like, I call them recruiting rucks, but we did St. Patty's Day. We had an event for that.
You mean a bar crawl?
Yeah. Hey, well, call it what you want.
Tomato.
Celebrations. But just stuff to like more like social events than really physical. I hate to call them fitness events, but so we did St. Patty's Day. We've got Cinco de Mayo coming up. Just stuff to keep the kids involved and just maybe recruit some people that aren't necessarily interested in punishing themselves, but just want to get out and get fit. And so it's, we offer a lot of things. We kind of preach the doom and gloom, but there's a whole lot to us, more than that. But
do something active with your community.
Because rucking, I mean, I don't want to come on here and bash a bunch of runners, but
let's do it.
Well, all right. Here's
running's stupid.
It sucks. I have no background or license or anything before I say anything here. But what I do know is that running, if you're a 200-pound man and you go running, it puts, I think, 1,600 foot-pounds of force on your knees at every impact. Walking is like 500 and like low 500s because of the dynamics of it. Right. Rucking with a 30-pound ruck, it only puts like 600 and some foot-pounds on your knees. So it's significantly less impact than running. So if you're someone that's 20, 30 pounds overweight, the last thing you should do is go running because it's just putting so much force on your knees that aren't even used to it to begin with. Whereas rucking, you get similar calorie burn to running. You get some strength training. It's not like the same as powerlifting, but you get some strength training compared to running. And you get automatic improvements on your posture because it's almost impossible to ruck with bad posture. It automatically pulls your shoulders back. Your back gets straight. Right. It's like the anti-chair effect. So, I mean, from a health benefit, you literally can't beat it. From less wear and tear, the same benefits. I mean, it should be more more commonly seen for endurance and for just regular cardio.
I just don't think it's out. Like it's nothing. I never even really thought about it before you start. And I will say I don't run. Like that's what I stopped running right around when I was about 200 pounds. Like I was like, I can't run. I can't do this because it just destroys my joints. But like, so it's like if I'm into, it's like, okay, the stair stepper, like rowing or something like that for cardio. But I'd never have had like joint issues when I went rucking.
Yeah.
Like I have like pride issues.
Right.
I'm like, oh goddamn. Like, but like other than that, like it's something you do have to like, obviously like you talk about like a good pair of boots or shoes or whatever to like stabilization, but like your tendons and stuff like that. But as far as like joint issues, like
no,
it's a good workout. Like, and that's I know it's one of those things where I'm like, I should do that more, but but there is a good aspect where, if someone just likes hiking, it's like that, but just, it's a little harder.
Yeah. I mean, and really it is. I mean, rucking, the definition is like literally just walking with a backpack. I mean, rucksack is it's just a military jargon that came over, and so it just became popular. But I mean, in the grand scheme, that's all you're doing is carrying a backpack. And it can be anything you want. It could be some snack. Like my daughter, she's 7. She just earned her patch. She brings a bunch of snacks and some water, and she loves it.
I like snacks.
Yeah,
snacks are good.
So I mean, it could be anything you want it to be. I mean, we take it probably to an extreme. At some point you cross the threshold of like, this isn't really for health, this is for sport, and we're probably more on the sports side. But
if you're doing those competitions, if you're doing those events, like you have to train for something.
Yeah,
like you can't just
you can't fake it. I mean, you could to an extent, but you'll survive them. But that's been my goal is like, okay, I survived that tough. I want to thrive at the next one. We'll see. It's been. I just like sciencing the shit out of it. Really, I like the events, but I like preparing for the events way more. It's like, I don't know, it's like when you watch Rocky or like even Rambo, what the hell's going to happen in the fight. You're watching it for the fucking training montage. So like that's what I like, man. I'm out there making the montage every day. And like I as soon as I get done with the event, I like immediately write down like 5 things that sucked, like what I did terrible. Anything from like shoes to packing to like nutrition, I just immediately write them down, and then I try to fix them, and then I'll go do another event, and then I'll look back and be like, did this one go better? And then I'll have like 5 new things that I got my ass kicked at.
It sounds like he needs to start creating something. Is what it sounds like.
Well, I mean, he is creating something.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean. Like, but really, because I know you've mentioned before doing like a website where you have like a actual like maybe prepping is not a good word, but you know what I mean, like
I'd like to. We'll see if it's in the cards now. I'd like to do like I don't know, like an everything rucking website that just kind of treats it as its own sport, because I was trying to pull some numbers together. I think like in the entire community, and that's if you count people who are required to ruck for their profession, like military soldiers, there's only like 200,000 people that do it. And and then you look at running, there's like 16 million. And in my opinion, rucking is just a better sport. So like, no offense, but running fucking blows. So
sucks.
Like, if we could...
You don't have to say no offense here.
Yeah, there's no rules.
Well...
you can say fucking offense intended. Running's fucking stupid.
I don't know. Hey, vertical runner. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Protesting.
Yeah, like I don't. That's
no.
No, it's not stupid. It's not. I understand why people enjoy it.
Yeah,
but I feel like there's so many other things that could be so much more enjoyable than like running down a road or around a track or like on a tread. Like, man, like I get it. Cardio is really good for you and it's healthy, and you're not getting any younger, so the heart's kind of important, I guess, is what they tell me. But like me, and like find something that is like, I don't understand those people that run.
No, it's not enjoyable. But my thought. People were designed to run, right? But they were also designed to weigh significantly less than the average American. So not even saying like, so like that's
now he's fat shaming.
Yeah. Now you're offending people.
Now you should say no offense.
And I'm not going to apologize for that.
Good.
No, like so I'm about 200. I'm 6'2". I'm probably built to run, but I was probably built to run at like 180. So but I don't want to be 180. No one wants to be 180. So that's what beauty of rucking is. It actually supports to an extent mass. So in fact, as the loads go higher, the mass that you can amass without being a detriment gets higher to an extent. Obviously, if you're like 5'10", 250, you're probably pushing the envelope a little bit. But upper body strength and just overall body strength and size is actually a benefit when you're starting carrying, like, obviously a 10-pound load is nothing, but if you're starting to carry like 50, 60 pounds,
you're gonna want some mass.
You want some size.
Yeah.
Size moves weight. It's just a better sport. But
So
It's just better.
predictions for your brother's event in California.
Has he signed up for that?
Oh yeah.
He sent me a clip or a link to that podcast he was on. You can tell that dude's just like,
oh yeah,
so your brother Corey, who's been on, did that tough with you guys and didn't train at all. He's
Zero
not
training.
much of a trainer.
No
Zero trainer.
Yeah.
Bodybuilder on an ostrich, like you said.
Yeah.
But he also he eats like shit all the time. And there's nothing new.
Burger King, Wendy's, McDonald's. all
Literally
the time.
every meal. And this is nothing new because he'd say this.
Trash panda.
And I just remember hearing that guy go, so you did so what kind of training? He's like, yeah, I just eat McDonald's. And I can only imagine the guy was probably like, is this guy bullshitting me? Or is he
yeah, because I kind of know who that guy is. He's like a real clean cut, like real wholesome family man. He's like active in his church. Like I don't know if he's a pastor, but he's like a minister of some sort.
So him and Corey don't run the same path.
Yeah, like it was enough that I was like, hey Corey, just before you go on there, like this is who this guy is. So just think about that.
What's the name of the podcast?
Under the Log.
Oh yeah. Under the Log. Yeah,
with
Ryan, it was funny. It was only I think it was like a half an hour or something like that, but it was funny. Listen to it. You could tell he was
he had no clue.
Yeah,
what
he
was
runs like
into.
a rucking podcast. And then you have this guy who's like, I eat hamburgers from McDonald's.
How did they find Corey for this?
Did you guys meet him down there or something?
Or? No. So he runs. Ryan has the podcast, and then he has 3 or 4 different websites, all dedicated to different parts of rucking. But I think he met with Corey over Instagram or something, because I think Corey hashtagged it or something, and so he was
just ended up catching it.
And so he was trying to find some people to interview from that particular event, because it was the Battle of the Bulge, and so somehow they got connected. But I was laughing when I heard about it. Jesus.
Well, he doesn't look like somebody who just eats McDonald's and doesn't do.
I think he has a freakishly high metabolism.
Yeah. He's like 7% body fat. I don't know.
Yeah, he does lift, but it's sporadic and it's more powerlifting.
Yeah, if he didn't lift and eat like he did, he would probably be 120 pounds.
Well, he does some cardio. It's just not your traditional cardio.
Well, we won't get into that.
So predictions for that event. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, when is
thought
it?
we were past that.
No, we're not.
Well,
I'm real good
should,
about reeling it right back in.
I should probably tell you the story of how he told me about he was going to do the event. So again, he's going to sign up for this. It's called a heavy. It's literally 24 hours, 40 miles. It's like the top of what we do. So he's like, "Yep, sign up for a heavy." Or no, he said signed up for a heavy and sent me the sign. Like he already. And so I'm looking at now. They do heavies all across the country. They're kind of they might do 10 a year, because not a lot of people want to do them. And I kind of had my eye on a couple that I was thinking about doing that were way more practical. So he sends me his, and it's in California, and I'm like, why would he sign up for a heavy in California when there's some coming to New York City and Washington D.C. for
Tell me it's the one where they do the training out there that we just
yeah. So I'm like, I see the name of the town, and normally, they're bigger cities like Cleveland, I'm like, man, I've never heard of that town. So then I pull it up, and I'm like, what's the significance? I couldn't figure out the significance of it. So then I realized that's where the Force Recon Marines train. And this heavy is in dedication to Force Recon Marines. So
what is a Force Recon Marine? Because that's
that's so. Special forces get thrown around a lot, but they're not special forces, but they're like an Army Ranger type of the Marines.
Gotcha.
So hard as nails. Like, I mean, they have like a long storied history of all kinds of conflict, and it's intense. And so Marines, you're thinking water. So where they're going is right on the beach. And I'm like, Corey, you signed up for an event on the beach to represent the Marines. Like, you realize, like, in November, the Pacific Ocean is freezing, and you're going to be in it for 24 hours. Like, you're never leaving the beach. Because, like, that's GoRuck's thing. You're going to get wet at every event.
Right.
Like, that's a terrible plan. I said, dude, nothing sounds worse to me than, now granted, I'm an Air Force guy, but nothing sounds worse than like sand and salt.
I said the only thing that sounds worse is maybe like where the Navy SEALs train or something like that. Like,
and it's basically,
maybe.
it's like the same place.
Yeah, it's the same place.
and I was like, and you got to fly out there. It's at night, so you're going to battle the time change.
Yeah.
And his response, of course, like he goes, none of those things crossed my mind. So
at least he wasn't. I expect you to say he's like not a factor.
No. He hadn't considered.
That makes a lot more sense. Yeah,
because I was like, dude,
think about it.
This is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. If I was going to go do a heavy this year, I would go do that in New York City, because it's going to be like, I said that first one hit me pretty hard with like the emotional significance. Right. That's going to be a somber experience, where you're there to honor 9/11 and all the first responders and all that stuff. So like there won't be a dry eye in that, and I think there's like 200 and some people going to that one.
That's
so
awesome.
I mean, you're going to flood the streets, and I was like, dude, if you're going to do one, do that, because like I don't care. I mean, how many sandbags can a cadre fit in his car? There's 200 of us, like but I don't know.
Sounds
I don't know, man.
Sounds like a terrible idea.
I don't know where to put it. I told him, I said, any other time I'd say 100% I'm going with you. I said, but with the baby coming, I don't know. I said, we'll play it by ear.
Is it pronounced San Clemente?
Yeah, something like that.
Clemente, California?
Yeah, that sounds like, was that where Shailene was talking about that he was?
Yeah, that's the one right there. Yeah.
Oh, San Clemente, yeah.
Looks easy.
Yeah, I don't know if he was in San Clemente or if he was in Coronado.
Oh, he might have talked. Maybe he was talking about Coronado.
Yeah, and so if you scroll down a little bit, so you see Cleve. He happens to be a Force Recon Marine, because he's going to make sure it gets done right.
Oh boy.
So yeah, he's gonna hurt him, and Cleve's got a history for being just a savage.
And this guy's the cadre?
Both of them are.
Oh, they'll go together.
Yeah. So that's what's bad about a heavy. So the first cadre will take you for 12 hours while the other one's sleeping. And so, they get tired just like you do. So they start kind of wearing down. All of a sudden they tap out and they do a shift change, and then they smoke you.
Oh, yeah. Marines they're special people.
So as you see, like, completion rate's 50%. And that's where no one signs up for these without knowing kind of roughly what they're getting into. They still only have a 50% completion rate.
Yeah, that's...
The basic used to be called a light.
Light, yeah.
So
they
is
did
this
a name
harder
change.
now?
A
Or
little
is it the
bit,
same?
yeah. So they did a little rebranding for 2021. Their motto this year is "Seek Pain." So with that, they changed the light to a basic because they thought it was a little bit too fluffy, I guess. I don't know. I guess it depends on what your strengths are. It could get better or worse. They've cut down the mileage per event, and they've increased the PT substantially, which I'm better at miles, so it wasn't the best for me. But
yeah, I feel that's where I'm at.
And that tough. I'm telling you, we did reps. It was in the thousands and thousands. So I know we started with 35. We lost 2 guys. We did the full Robbie Miller WOD. We did a welcome party. So that's how every event starts. They do their basic admin roll call. Does anyone have any medical conditions? And then they start with your bag check, because you have this whole list of required items. So it's straight boot camp style. Raise this, raise this, raise this. You have to have your ID. You have to have $20. You have to have this. And then when it's all your shit scattered all over, now it's dark. Okay, 30 seconds, pack it up. And everybody always packs too much stuff because you want to be prepared.
Right.
So you overpack. So you're trying to pack all this shit in, and like it fit in perfect when you're like in your hotel room.
Right.
And,
you're working it all out.
And so the event literally went like this: pack it up. Okay, 10 push-ups. Everybody does for 10 because nobody got done in time. 10 push-ups. Take it all back out. Pack it up again. 20 flutter kicks. Take it all out. Pack it up again. 30 push-ups. Take it out again. we're at 50. And now, mind you, we're doing 4-count push-ups, which I didn't know was a thing until we got there, that you could do a 4-count push-up. So we're doing 50 4-count push-ups.
Oh, but is that like 4 push-ups counts as one? Or
so like down, up, like 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 1.
That's a double
one.
push-up.
Yeah. I'm like, no. And that's why I was like, time out. You can't do that because that doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
But,
you guys know math?
Yeah.
Like, were these Marines a bunch of fucking crazy
No,
leaders?
cadre hand. He's a
oh, yeah.
savage. Okay. But yeah, so the welcome party, I think we made it to like 50 reps, packed it up, got moving. I puked. Just, I like to get it out of the way. You know what I mean?
You got to. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so then we go on, do the Robbie Miller WOD, which that's a pretty, you just did it, so I can't even remember what's all in it, but
I was gonna. How did you do ring pull-ups?
So you do substitutions.
Okay, so
the rows, didn't you?
Yeah.
You did was it sandbag rows, and you do 6 of those?
Yeah.
And then it was it 6 squat burpees?
Yep.
And then
mountain climbers.
6 mountain climbers. Well, 6, but 24.
6 by 4.
Yeah, 4. Everything's 4-count pretty much.
And then 6 ruck get-ups.
Yeah, those are the
and you did
best.
12 rounds.
12 rounds of that. Yeah, so and then you got to do a 3-mile infill and a 3-mile exfil. So on the infill, that is pretty funny because we were all, got to the welcome party. Everyone's still like pretty jovial. We're all in good spirits and laughing and stuff. And we're walking along, and somebody dropped. Oh, they gave us these. So you're carrying these like 5-gallon water jugs. Well, it's 10 degrees out, so they're freezing, and they're like carrying a block of ice. Like the slightest movement, and you drop them. So somebody drops one and goes skipping, and he's like halts everybody. He's like, "Listen, this equipment, like you need to. This represents like your gear, like your weapons, your firearms, your ammo. Like you need to treat it like it's you're gonna save your life. Like you can't just let this stuff fall. I know it's pretend, but like treat it with respect." As he's saying this, Austin drops his sandbag because, we stop. So he just drops it, and it just goes like we're on concrete, and it just goes schwack. That's it, and just starts smoking us. And I just look over like, you son of a bitch. Well, so then there's 2 cadres. So while he's doing that, the other cadre finds this giant log. It's this huge elm log. It's like 38 feet long. So he's like, you guys, come over here. So me and Corey I'm like, God damn it, I do this all day for work. I don't need to drag logs on the weekends. So we dragged this giant log, but it was real skinny. So it wasn't heavy, but the problem was it was so long, it was like floppy. So I'm on one end, Corey's on the other.
Those elms are bendy.
Yeah, and they're trying to put people in the middle, but it's like bouncing. And it's just beating the shit out of them. And we're taller, so they're just... So we carried that thing for like 3 miles, and then finally, when we got to the Robbie Miller WOD, he's like, "You guys can ditch that." I'm like, "Thank God, man!" He's just beating the shit out of everybody. But I thought after the Robbie Miller WOD, we were pretty much done with PT, and then we just rucked the rest of the time, and I was wrong. Because that's when we rucked like 3 more miles, and then the whole low crawling thing, and then at that point, I was like, "Okay, I'm done." I'm ready to just get my patch and go home. So we're like, we literally low crawled for like 100, 200 yards. And then he's like, now he starts like getting into the history of the Battle of Bulge. So he kind of gave us a break. And I'm laying there on the ground, and my beard is like literally frozen to the ground. I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. I'm ready to die. Like, this is cool. I've made my peace. Let's just get on with it. So
you had a much bigger beard then.
Oh yeah, I had a huge beard. Yeah, it's just frozen to the ground. So that's when we start moving. We're doing the triple sandbag thing. We go back to the parking lot. I'm like, oh shit, it's still dark, but maybe we're done. There's 33 of us, and he's like, I want each of you to think of an exercise and do 10. Like, you call it out, and then everybody will do 10 reps in cadence, and we'll just go down the list. So right there was 330 reps, and a lot of the stuff's 4-count. Like, you don't have a choice. So everyone kind of pitches in and tries to be smart about it. So like, okay, if we just did squats, then somebody will do some curls and like some overpress, we try to mix it up. And then you get this asshole. We just did all those get-ups. He's like, get-ups. It's like the last guy. He calls get-ups. I'm like, everyone's like, fucking friendly fire this guy.
Yeah, whoops.
I told him, I said, this is the real military. I said, I'd friendly fire your ass.
Do you think do you think that part of why you enjoy the rucking is because you said you're Air Force guy?
Yep.
Do you think that might lend a little bit to to why you like enjoy the maybe at least the environment around rucking? And
Yeah,
whatnot?
100%. When I got out, I was ready to be done, but I don't know. I always kind of felt I left a little bit on the table. There were some other career fields I wanted to pursue, and there were some other adventures that I really wanted to kind of get into, and it just didn't work. And I've kind of made my peace with it, but I always kind of had that in the back of my mind, like, man, I could have done a little bit more. Or I could have done this, and SEER school was kind of the big thing. Like I thought I could get into that career field. So when I got out, I knew I didn't want to go back in, because anybody that has a kid in the military, like, I don't know how you do it. Like, it's so easy when you're single, but I just could never leave my kid for a deployment. I don't know how. More power to them, but that they're better men than me, because I just could not do it. So I knew I didn't want to go back in, but I still kind of missed parts of it. There's a lot of it I didn't, but just parts of it, like, I really, really wanted, and I never could find a good like replacement. And then this came along, and it was like it's exactly what I needed. So yeah, in a lot of ways, man, it keeps you involved with the community. Like I said, we do a lot of the things to commemorate battles, and then we do like these monthly, they call them anti-virtual WODs, but basically every month is like a hero WOD. Like, you have the CrossFit hero WODs. So Go Ruck's adopted a lot of those, and then they collaborate. So this month was like Travis Manion WOD. So he was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps, killed in combat, and so his dad started a charity event, and so we all get together, we do a workout, we pay some, I think it was like $35, you get a t-shirt and a patch, the money goes to like a respectable charity, and we get to kind of like celebrate his life and that sort of thing. So that kind of stuff, like, I love it, because it keeps you part of the community.
Right.
I don't want to be that guy that's like, back in 1962 in Vietnam, But
what made you, because you joined real young. I mean, basically as early as you could, right? Essentially.
I was 20.
Oh, you were 20. Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought you were young. Maybe I thought you were younger than that.
No, I was 20.
So what made you join the military? Just.
So I knew college wasn't for me, at least initially. Something about college just didn't sit right with me. So I was like, I'm gonna wait and just kind of see. I don't know what I want to be or what I want to do.
Who the fuck does it? 20. I hate that. Like, when you gotta know what you got. Like, if you're like 16, what do you want to be when you grow up?
You got to choose now.
Yeah.
So I knew I didn't want to go to college, at least initially. So of course my dad's like, hey, I got a job for you. So I started doing tree work with him. The money was good. I enjoyed it. I did that for like 2 years, but like back then the workforce is a lot different than it is now. Pretty much everybody I worked with was like 40s or up. So I was the only guy that was like in my teens, and I think I was the only guy in my 20s. So it was just kind of shitty to work with a bunch of old guys. Like, I had nothing in common with them, but we'd all sit around at lunch, and they all were ex-military, different branches, and talked. And like every lunch was like talking about the good old days. And so like suddenly I'm kind of like, man, like maybe that's for me. It wasn't like. I don't know. I hear about these other guys, and they have this like deep patriotic drive to like go, and it wasn't that. And like I've developed that later in life, but it wasn't that altruistic. It was more like I just wanted like an adventure.
You weren't like Jocko Willink when he was like 6. He's like, I'm gonna be a commando.
Yeah, no. It was just like I see like these guys, and like they all have like ex-wives and child support and like just stuff, and like I want to, like, before I'm in that, like I want to go.
Before I get to that point.
Before I get there, I'm sure I'll get there. But like,
I love the acknowledgement that it's going to happen.
Yeah,
so
let's
do something cool.
You can't be a good tree guy unless you have child support and a felony. Like that's how you know you're good. That's why I was always average, but I was never great because I never quite got that felony.
Yeah, never be a tree guy. You don't have a good drug addiction.
Yeah. So.
Fucking got
I don't know. I really just wanted adventure. So I hung out there for 2 years, and then on the weekends I go visit my buddies in college, and I'm like, dude, this isn't like they didn't have 2 pennies to their name. They're like scraping together money to buy like a case of beer, and I'm like, I was making good money at the time. I'm like, that seems like I'm going backwards.
Right.
So, and then you ask them like, what are you getting a degree in? And I'm like, I don't know. Like my buddy Turtle's like, I don't know. I'm going to broom ball class. Like. Yeah, turtles and broomball, and I'm like,
waste of time.
No, dude, this
I
ain't.
don't know what that is. Is that like what is that like in the Olympics? Where they do the
curling.
The curling.
That's a goddamn sport. Okay, no, that's my favorite Olympic sport to watch.
It's got to take some skill.
Hell yeah, that's the everyman's Olympic sport. You know what I mean?
Even the Russians were doping their curlers.
Yeah.
I could do curling, but I don't want to be that dude that does the thing. I couldn't. That's too much pressure. I just want to be the sweeper guy.
Because could you imagine if you slip and just like really send it off to the side?
Like, does anyone really know?
Like right off the bat, they're like, "God damn it, Larry!"
Do you really know if the sweeper guy did his job? No one fucking knows. You swept too hard? No one fucking knows.
Broom ball.
Oh yeah, see, that's turtle.
It's hockey, but with bigger. It's like, what kind of ridiculous sport's that? It's essentially hockey, but with people that can't play hockey, so they make the puck really, really, really big, and they make the stick really, really, really big.
But look at those kids; they're having fun.
Yeah, it's like handicap lacrosse.
That looks like a high stick right there. There should probably be a flag. That's definitely high stick.
Oh yeah,
that's high stick for sure.
I think that's a guy, but
is it? Oh yeah, I thought it was a young girl.
I don't know. I hate the. Oh,
all I can think of is give your balls a tug.
I've watched much more of that show. I started watching it when you mentioned it years ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is really funny." And then I hadn't watched it for a while, and then like that was probably a couple months ago, where I was just paying way too much attention to politics and shit, and I was like, "I gotta sit down for here in a couple hours and just watch some Letterkenny to let like my brain melt a little bit." It's so good.
I love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's weird. So Wayne's in another movie. I can't remember what it is. But it's so weird. He walks in and you're like, is that fucking Wayne? Like, once he's in that cast, he should never ever be in anything else.
Oh yeah, well I remember I think Cass looked him up on Google or something one time. She was like, "What the fuck?" She's like, "He's really good looking." And I was like, "Wayne?" I was like, "Okay." Man.
Well, he's not blinking.
Yeah, he's not blinking. He has that like face that like he looks like he's in pain. I didn't realize he was a writer on that show. I was like, I was like, that dude's fucking brilliant.
Oh yeah,
him and was the pastor.
The pastors, and he's one of my favorite characters now too. I love that one of the very first episodes. He's like, they're like doing the youth group thing, and they're all singing and whatever. He comes out, he was like, "Oh, I know, isn't God great? He's like my second favorite person." I'm like, wait a minute, this is the pastor. Like, I get what you did there. That's funny.
Holly likes the bartender. What's her name?
Oh, of course she does.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She does.
Yeah. God, she's creepy. She's like, how about we 68 and I'll owe you one. She's so creepy. I can't remember her name. But...
Yeah. That's.
Oh,
that doesn't surprise me. So
I don't know how we got onto that.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
The broom ball. Oh, because you were.
Yeah.
You realized your buddies in college were shitting their life away.
Gail,
that's it.
Gail.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So, it wasn't for any altruistic reason. I just literally just wanted an adventure. So, I made a very poor choice. I went to the recruiter and was like, "Hey, I want to go to the Air Force," and he's like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't care." And I have to say, like, people give the recruiters a bad rap, and maybe they all suck. I don't know, but mine was awesome. And the whole, so MEPS is like the processing station where you go. They all took care of me, like, to an unbelievable extent, because I could have got a way shitty job. I literally went in and said, "I don't care what I do. I just want to go." And so they send you up. You take your ASVAB. That comes back, and they go, "Okay, basically, based on what you scored, this is what you're qualified to do." And so I'm sitting there and I'm like ready to go. And they're like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't care. Just whatever." And he's like, I mean, based on your score, you can pretty much do whatever you want. He's like, "Well, would you rather like travel or stay on a base?" And I was like, "Oh no, dude, I want to travel." And he's like, "Okay. Do you like golf?" And I was like, "I mean, I can learn. I can learn to like golf, sure." And he's like,
"That's
okay."
what my country needs.
And he literally goes, "Okay, cool, you're air crew." And I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Well, what air crew do you want to be?" And so he rattles off. There's like 8 air crew positions for enlisted guys, and I don't even know what this means at the time. And he's like, blah blah blah. You know, you can do this, that, or whatever. And he got to like communications, and like I was real big in like speakers and stuff as a kid, so I had a pretty good knowledge of electrical. And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like me." So he literally signs me up, and I didn't realize like what a blessing that was. But I got into like my initial qual where they're training like all of the guys in my career field, and these guys had fought to get in these positions for like years, and they'd had to wait like all this time to get in, and like their dads had been air crew, and like their grandpas had been air crew, and they had this like rich history of like aviators, and I just got there by accident because I was like, yeah, sign me up, whatever. And
that's what pays for being smart.
I was saying you're also very smart. So your
yeah, but I don't think that was it, because it could have been like, oh, you're a cook. Like all it took was to check that box to be you're a cook, and I'd have been cooking for 4 years. Like
terrible.
Yeah, like it was like they could have been like, oh, we don't have infantry, but like any shit job, you know. But they like literally took care of me. So my entire career, most of my life has been like me just going, fucking roll the dice, and like people have just kind of like kept me between the lines. So
I've heard that you've traveled through many countries and your face is still in one piece. I think maybe you said that once.
Yeah, so far.
So was it 9th Wing reconnaissance? Is that what it was?
So when did you end up actually doing?
So they give you your career field first, and then you go through your whole boot camp bullshit, and then you go to what's called initial qual. And so what that is like it's your longest training, but you don't even know what your job is yet, because so my job was a 1 Alpha 3, which is like airborne mission systems. It's like communication specialist. So they're on like all kinds of airplanes. So AWACS. You've seen those, like they have the giant radar.
What is that? Is that what that
radar.
Is? It's just,
yeah.
I knew it was some kind of technological.
Yeah, so it's basically it's a jet with a giant radar system. So what they'll do is they'll fly over a battlefield and they'll do airborne command and control. So like, a lot of these countries you go into don't really have radar, like they're third world. So they'll run radar systems for all of our troops.
Like a mobile unit, essentially.
Yeah, and then there's J-Stars, which is like a similar jet, but it's got like a canoe-looking thing on the bottom, and what it does is ground radar. So it'll fly over like, say Iran or something like that, and it'll be able to detect tanks and underground bunkers and stuff like that. But it's like you get on these, and they're like these just giant suites of communication stuff, and those guys are like they're like technicians more than anything. And they're telling me about these, and I'm like, that doesn't sound great. You know what I mean? Like you're flying on a jet, like it's okay. And then they said, or you could be like on Air Force One. And I'm like, that's definitely not me. Like I don't really want to be around anybody with any kind of rank. Like I want to stay like low profile. And then they're like, well,
beat myself.
Yeah, yeah. And then the only other two were rescue and then special operations. And it was kind of weird because all the instructors came from like AWACS or J-Stars. Nobody there was from special operations. So when they talked about it, it was kind of like, yeah, you could be on any of these or special operations. And because like they didn't know anything about it.
Right.
They never met anybody in the career field that had actually done it. Because prior to, I think my class and one other class, to be in special operations, you already had to do a tour of service. And then you could do that as like a follow-on assignment if you got in. So it was like a very much like it was hard to get in.
It almost, yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't take very many people, and so no one knew anything about it when I was going through school. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, I want to be there. And they're like, no,
fun.
They're like, no, why would you want to do that? Like we fly in jets and we get paid all this money because we get to go to Germany, and Germany's like $200 a day per diem. I'm like, no, I want to be on that. And they're like, dude, you're not getting on that. I'm like, I'm gonna get on that. And so like at that point, as soon as I heard that there was an option to go fly spec ops, I was like, I'm doing it. And so I went all through training, and they're like, the only way you'd even have a chance is basically if you're at the top of your class. So I made it my mission. I'm going to be at the top of my class. So I finished distinguished graduate. I put in, and they do these things called dream sheets where you basically pick 3 bases based on the platform you could be on, and then they give you one of the 3. I just put special operations because I'm like, if you don't give me that, I don't give a fuck. So that's where I want to be. So they give us our assignments. They're like, you're going to rescue. I'm like, fuck. All right, I guess I'm going to rescue. So I get my mind right. I'm going to rescue. Finish my training.
Doesn't sound. That sounds exciting.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's actually the exact same airplane. I mean, a couple small tweaks, but it's search and rescue. It's like the same mission. But at the time, I didn't know. I was like, that's not cool. So I'm like kind of disappointed, but okay, whatever. At least I'm going to go do something cool. I finished. Like I have another month of school. Finish school. As I'm walking out the door, they hand me my orders. and it says special operations. And I'm like, hey, this isn't right. Like, you guys told me I'm going to rescue. And they said, if it's on paper, that's right. So I had already forwarded all my stuff to the rescue base, and they changed bases. So now I'm going, instead of going to Arizona, I'm going to Florida. So totally different. Kind of fucked my mind a little bit. But yeah, so that's how I got into it. But it was just pure happenstance. But so I got assigned to the MC-130 Combat Shadow. So I don't know if you know this or not. Back in like 62, the military, all the bases, they decided that to name airplanes, they were going to make them like universal. So like F is fighter, A is attack. Okay. I don't know if you know that. So like MC-130P. So the M is for multi, which is basically special operations. The C is for cargo, and then 130 is like the platform.
So yeah, I'm familiar with the C-130s. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, we see those flying around northeastern Ohio,
or
all over Ohio,
the
because
Guard
of the
and
Youngstown
Reserve
base and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what they did was they took a typical 130 and then they retrofitted it. If you see like those outer pods, what those are is they have. You can see that picture to the right there where they're extended, but they those hoses extend out, and that little umbrella-looking thing is called a drone. And basically, you can plug in any kind of like any kind of tilt rotor or a helicopter. You can do aero refueling with it. Right. So that was kind of our bread and butter mission. We would infill, exfil, and resupply special operations forces. So I always said like we're like the Uber for spec ops. Right. So like.
I mean, that's that's pretty, to be at least in the realm of,
Yeah, that's what we did.
Spurred me to cook, right?
Yeah, fuck yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so I was part of the 9th SOS, and those are our platform. But, like a typical mission for us, so it was right after I got out, but I think it was 2011, the Bin Laden hit. Right. So you'll never hear the SOS like on the news. Like they're not a published thing. But so helicopters, especially in like mountainous environments, do very poorly. They just their power to weight ratio is abysmal. Right. So and then especially like a lot of the helicopters are flying were never meant to be up armored. And so they've been up armored because of all the IEDs and all this stuff. So you've got a helicopter that's already. Helicopters aren't really designed to fly. I mean, they like break laws of gravity by flying.
Even I'm familiar with helicopters, but I've flown with pilots who are like, yeah, it's kind of cool. Like you fly around this thing that like really like it really shouldn't be doing what it's doing.
No,
they just like tweaked it out to just make it work.
Yeah. So you've got like say on that mission they had these Blackhawks and they're all loaded up with armor, and then you've got these like shooter teams. That was like Team 6. So they're all in there, and they're fully loaded down with all their stuff. And so, and you're flying in Afghanistan, which is like extremely mountainous. So in order to clear these mountain passes, you have to be like on fumes, because if you're fully loaded with fuel, you can't take off. Yeah. So what we would do is the helicopters would take off on fumes. We would aerial refuel them as they fly their mission. Then they go land, do the hit, take back off. We'd refuel them again and drag them home because they can't take off with enough fuel to make it to where they're going.
Wild.
So that was kind of our. And then of course, when the helicopters would go down, they'd lose comms because of the mountain range. So then we would stay up and provide C2, which is communication. So we could relay back and forth and kind of just be somewhat like an eye in the sky. Right. So that was kind of our standard mission. But yeah, we were involved in the Bin Laden hit. Basically drug the helicopters all the way in. They did the hit, came back, refueled them. We all landed at the same base. They took the body off, put them on our plane, and then flew them all the way to Germany. So that was kind of a standard mission for us.
Well, actually, I would say maybe not that one exactly.
Well, yeah. But
that's really, I didn't realize that. That's really fucking neat. Well, I mean, just another thing too, just as far as technically goes. People don't realize like helicopters, you see them flying around, you think they're doing cool things. And even like some of the helicopters that are meant to do like work still, if you have a couple 100 pounds can be a massive difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like, it'd be like, oh, like how much do my, passengers weigh today? Because I can only put so much fuel in a helicopter, and a helicopter can only hold so much fuel. Like, so I can imagine being armored and then the guys that are weighing well over 200 pounds with all their shit on,
Mm-hmm.
I could get I never realized that's
even
how they did that.
on a C-130, as big as they are, it comes down. I'll tell you a story about it, but those numbers are important. Your they call it toll data, but your balance and all that is extremely important. But yeah, so that was the guy that did that Bin Laden hit. His name is Merge. Who's actually my boss when I got out. So he got to do it, and then he retired right after because he's like, I'll never do anything this cool. So he did the mission and retired after 20 years. So it was pretty sweet.
It's a good way to go out.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a great guy. I'm glad it happened to him and not some of the other guys, but he's just a really good dude, did his time,
Right.
He was an instructor at the schoolhouse. Like he'd done his time. So it was great to see him do it. But it's all need to know. So it's kind of nice when you do those missions, you don't necessarily know who you're going after because it doesn't matter. So
it's the task at hand.
Yeah, like obviously the team guys are going to know who they're after, but outside of that, everyone else involved, you just know you're going after a high value target. So you're on your A game, but there's no added stress because you don't really know.
Right.
So they didn't know until they had the body on the plane and they're flying it back that's who they got.
Oh Jesus.
So yeah,
it's you need just enough stress to perform, but not enough to fuck this up.
Yeah, right.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I can't. That's my mind's just blown. That'd
Yeah,
be
it
wild
was
to just be,
be
like, oh hey, yeah, guess who this is? Like, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah, especially as long as they were.
I heard we've been looking for him for a while. Found him.
Osama.
Jesus.
Oh my God, that's the best. Bin Laden, get your ass out here.
That's so funny.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was a time I feel like I heard from the family members, it was like, hey, Dusty's going to be not in communication for a while, but he said to watch the news.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Who the fuck knows?
I signed up for an adventure and I got everything I paid for sure. It was fun. And it just like anything else, there's good times and bad times, but when you look back at it, you're like, holy shit, I did all that in 4 years. It's like, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I did 2 trips to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, went to the Horn of Africa, which that was definitely some wild shit. Did some work in Colombia. So they really piled it on, man. It was awesome.
Jeez, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Some of those areas are places you just kind of go to for vacation or just to hang out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess.
Well, that was cool. So we went to Colombia twice. The first time they put us up in Cartagena, which is like this beautiful beach town. I mean, it's just gorgeous. And we're in these 5-star hotels. And the next time we were in Bogota, which is not the same.
So I recognize that one.
Yeah. Being a very uncultured white boy from Ohio, man, getting thrown in these situations or you're in Colombia and no one speaks English at all. It's like your eyes are like, holy shit, they're just wide open, man. That's the only way to really experience stuff because you're just thrown to the wolves and you have no clue.
It looked like you were gonna say something.
No, it's just this has been going. You've been speaking about this for 40 minutes, and I feel like I have learned more about your experience than ever before. I don't know if it's because you were in Florida, and then you came back, and then you went right to work, or what. But you were pretty private about things, and it's one of those things that you don't ask questions because I literally had no idea. I knew that you were in a plane doing some shit. That was it.
A guy in a plane that was afraid of heights.
Yeah.
We forgot to mention that. A guy that's like, I don't really like heights, so let me go to the Air Force.
I remember going to Texas, and I remember the moment that they called you as top graduate.
Yeah.
They were I remember they said 2 things, and you said, that's me. And then they were top graduate, and they said your name. And I just remember crying like a baby with mom and dad. And then we left, and then you left, and I feel like I've learned more in the last 40 minutes than before.
Yeah, well, everything just becomes so routine, It doesn't seem... Which is... You have to be... I mean, if you're going to do high-level stuff like that, you have to... It would almost be boring. A lot of it was super boring because you just train so much. I mean... So, we got out of training, and even when you're a fully trained, qualified... aviator, you're still flying like 4 days a week. And like our training missions, you could not tell the difference from an outside observer. A combat mission to a training mission looks exactly the same. So like when you get in combat, they're actually a little bit more boring because like you force stuff to happen in training. So like, you know, a standard night training mission for us, we're going to take off. We're going to go do just a typical like drop, you know, whether it's parachuters or cargo. We're going to do some sort of airdrop. We're going to do some like tactical landings and takeoffs. We might do an aero refuel. We might go refuel from another plane. We're going to do all that in one night. So then in combat, you might do one of those. Like,
Right.
so it's like almost like watered down. Like, so you've overtrained so much that it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know, whatever you need. Like, it's the same shit. We've just been doing this every single day. Now, as you kind of go through the ranks, you kind of fly less and less because there's new people that need to fly,
Right.
and you've kind of achieved proficiency. But
I think, and I've heard this said a lot about, you know, whether it be like, I think a good parallel to that is like firearms, being able, like, you know, with the police discussions and things like these days, like that they're just not trained enough. But like with a firearm, like when you get to a point where you have to use it, in a situation where you have to use it, like you need the training, because when it comes to that point, it's all about instincts. You know, I think I would imagine that it's probably by design that the military trains you so much to when you get into a situation, it's no longer like I have to make a decision. It's the decision's already made for you because you've been so
it's
thoroughly
ingrained.
trained.
Yep, it's ingrained. Yeah, you most people fall back to their level of training, right? There's very few people that like rise above in like a stressful situation. I'm definitely not one of those people. Like, you know, but there are people like, you know, you get in that shittiest of shit and they're like just their performance. But most people like fall back to like what they know. So,
Can I change the subject for a minute about training?
Yeah.
You had women in your training, right? Like your PT in Texas,
Yeah.
right? There was. Did you guys have all that had the same standards, right? Like they had to achieve
no.
the same
Oh,
things
you're
you had
talking
to.
for base training, right?
Yeah, for basic training.
No, they have their own.
They had their own. Does that affect what job they can go to?
No. I don't know what the I know when I was in, there were some restricted career fields where you couldn't be a woman in the Air Force. There, I think combat controller and PJ were probably restricted to males. I assume they still are, but
And those are
I
kind of
don't
like
know.
the special ops of Air Force.
Yeah,
like combat controller.
They're
PJs.
legit. Yeah, it's some of the most brutal. In fact, I don't know if you ever read David Goggins' book, but David Goggins failed out of PJ school before he went on to be a SEAL. So yeah, it's no joke, dude.
So I've heard PJs are.
Yeah.
Is it because females have never been able to accomplish, like to get into that, or they just aren't open to it? Do you know?
I mean, I think across all of the branches, it's fairly prohibited. They're just now opening up some of the doors for like SEALs and stuff. It's extremely exclusive.
I'm only asking because there's been talk recently about changing the requirements for females, letting pregnant women accomplish, do more things.
Fighter jet pilots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
For the
So I was
most part, any like direct combat job is going to be restricted.
I think,
and they're slowly kind of
I think in
blurring
the last
lines.
5 years they've started opening
Yeah.
combat roles. To,
But true combat, like infantry, CCT, PJ, all those, they're going to be fairly restricted. But I mean, I don't know. And me personally, I'm all for if women can make it, they absolutely should. But I am against the standard difference. So if they can
Which
make
doesn't
it
make
through,
sense.
yeah,
That was okay. So that's what I was getting at. Like,
yeah.
if they went through basic training, why are their standards different? And if the standards are different, does that dictate what jobs they get? Because that would make sense.
Yeah, no, basic. But I mean, you got to think. Here's the thing. So people don't realize, like, especially in the Air Force, there's like 2% of the Air Force is like what I call an action role. Everybody else is like in a support role, and that's not to diminish anybody that did anything, but like, I think like 0.5% of the Air Force is like enlisted air crew, which is what I was in. Like the majority, they're like working on base. They're doing finance. they're doing cooking, they're doing vehicle transportation, like they're doing like things that help like the logistics of the Air Force, but they're not doing like a combat or a combat support role. So like you don't need all that for the most of it.
I was just like any other. It's not even a business. I mean, obviously, that can be debated about, but like, it's just like anything else. Like you have to have. It's a community. Mm-hmm. It's a secluded community where people have to eat. People have to have their maintenance for vehicles and all those things. Like they don't.
The Air Force is 100% a giant business. It works just like a business. I mean, it has office buildings. It has Microsoft Outlook. I mean, it has like competitive forces like within it. Like, if you belong to like AFSOC, you get budgets that are different than the ACC, which is different than this. Like, and those compete amongst each other for funding. It's just like a business. Like it runs 100% just like a business for hire. But it's the only difference is like you get the amount of money you're allowed to spend versus like you try to make money. Like it's
right.
But it's ran just like a business.
Oh, there's not a whole lot of other ways you could do it.
Yeah,
really. But
any dicey stories you can talk about?
Yeah, if I got a couple.
Yeah. So you talked about your regular your typical missions, which obviously aren't typical for most people.
Sure.
But what are the parameters that in my mind, I'm gonna take it another step level because I understand a little bit of the aviation field because I fly around helicopters more often than most. But as far as the specifics around, I guess maybe a little backstory. It was really neat when was it Trump? We came through a year or two ago, before the election. I was flying the one day in a helicopter, and we were way away from Cleveland, but they kind of expanded the airspace of Cleveland, when the president comes to town, naturally.
Yeah.
And it was all day long, we would get relay calls from different airports that were hey, Cleveland needs to talk to you. So we'd and I never,
because you're down in the weeds.
Yeah. Cause I fly real low. So we'd have to fly way up, which higher than I've ever been in a helicopter, which is, and we had doors off. So it was you're, I don't know, we're well over 1,500 feet, in a helicopter. It's oh God, we're way up here now just to talk to them. And it's there's a lot of weird rules and things that are, that normal people aren't they don't know.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine some of the stuff that
Oh, wow.
It's been better. Usually it happens. Yeah. So what, I guess what are some of those things that those outliers that normal people wouldn't realize because there's a lot of information you just talked about that kind of went over my head.
Yeah.
But still is I kind of I know a little bit of it because I'm semi familiar with it, but
yeah. And that was a lot of what I did. So, I told you I was a comms guy. So my job, you show up the airplane, you'd pre-flight it, all the comms, navigation equipment, communication equipment, everything would get kind of ran through and make sure it's functional, test it out, make sure everything's good to go, run it through. They all have their little system checks, all that stuff. And then kind of the heart of my job was CommSec, which communication security. So, back in the day, they would do the Navajo wind talkers and all that stuff, and then that evolved into frequency hopping, and then this and that, whatever. Now it's CommSec. So what it is everything's encrypted. So the biggest part of my job was going through and loading all the secure communications and making sure. So I don't know if you ever watch the movies, you hear they're on comms, on a SEAL training or something, and you'll hear them, they push the button and they'll hit a little tone, a beep, and then they talk. Well, that's the radio telling you that it's safe to talk, because if you don't hear that beep, you're broadcasting to anybody. So that encryption, it kind of sounds like a fax machine if you listen to it from not on that side of the radio. But so I go through and load all the radios. I mean, we had an array of stuff, and load all that up, make sure it's all good to go. And then once we would fly, I would do air traffic control, which is a nightmare if you think about it, because I'm sitting backwards in that plane, and I'm you have the cockpit or the flight deck on a big plane like we're on, and then you have a wall, and then I'm backwards. I'm in the cargo area. So I'm at the very front of the cargo area facing backwards, and the only window I have is like down low for like scanning for threats like missiles and stuff. So I have no situational awareness as far as like where I'm at, other than like I'm in this dark plane. And we fly all of our flights at night with night vision goggles. So I don't know shit about where I'm going. And I'm doing air traffic control from there, flying backwards at 250 knots with night vision goggles on, with no
Do you
lights.
have like a map or anything at least, or like not like I mean like a digital like a rate like.
So you have this comm suite, but it's like it's all like analog information as far as like you see your flight level, you see like to this point. So you literally create like this like 3D rendering in your brain of like where you are, and that takes forever to try to do that. But you're literally flying like blindfolded, talking to air traffic control, telling them where you're at, navigating through, and like down on the panhandle, man, it's so busy because you have 2 military bases. And within those, you've got spec ops, but you also have fighters, which they fly, insanely fast. Then you have a regional airport right there, and then you have all these beachcombers doing like the thing, and then you have
because you were on the Gulf side of Mexico, or not Mexico, sorry, Florida.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm like real close to Alabama. Yeah. So, and then you have the people with the, what is that called? Where you like go behind the plane?
The banners.
Yeah, the banner towers,
Right.
and then so you're trying to navigate through all of that while talking to air traffic control, and then you're still trying to do your actual job, which is like, I'm going to communicate with the drop zone and let them know how far we are out, and like, maybe I got to check in with C2 and let them know like just took off, and like it's like, so you're wearing like basically these with David Clark's, but I'm running like 6 different radios all at the same time, and I'm listening to them all at the same time, and we're doing this with 2 planes in formation that are flying like 100 feet from each other, and it's insane.
100 feet's really close.
Yeah, and
especially for planes that big. You're in the C-130s.
Yeah,
MC-130s.
Yeah, so you're talking 132 foot wingspan, and we would do low level flying's like our claim to fame, right? So that's like for basically what you do in the helicopter, where you're flying like right above the ground.
Yeah,
so
that's a lot different.
It's a little bit different. Yeah. So like we were one of the first units in Afghanistan back in 2001, obviously before I was in. But when you're flying into a country that has like active defenses, you need to fly real low because you're going to get shot down if not, because they have radar. So we would fly like threat pin at like 300 feet.
Jesus.
Yeah. So think about, you're at 300 feet, but that's not counting the trees. And you have a 132 foot wingspan. So you literally have to raise up to just turn, because if you turn, you'll run into the ground.
Yeah. So the wingspan you said was 130 foot?
132 feet. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You're like on the ground. Like you're basically.
Yeah. So you're like knocking the leaves off the trees as you go over, and you're flying in formation like this and at 250 knots. And so you're literally,
Yes. So anyone that like has listened to this, that like, so a helicopter, you see a helicopter, like when somebody sees a helicopter real low, they're like, oh, wow, look how low that helicopter is. That's usually at like 150, 200 feet. Mm-hmm. But that's a helicopter that's only has a quote unquote wingspan of like 30 feet.
Yeah.
So you're like, it's basically like a little mosquito floating around. But if no one's ever seen a C-130, I don't think anyone's ever seen a C1. Well,
no. You won't see anybody. You won't see anybody because no one else is allowed to do it. So
that's wild.
Yeah. In the daytime, we could do 200 feet, which is even scarier because you can see the ground. Like on night vision, everything kind of blurry.
You're basically landing.
Yeah.
At that point.
Dude, at 250 knots, it's insane. So we would literally, what we would do is like we would fly through the mountains like that, just like literally yanking and banging, like. But that keeps you out of radar. Yeah,
4-engine.
Yeah, you're a giant school bus, like
yanking and banging. It's like those the figure 8 school bus demolition.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, and you're we're like weighing in like up to 155,000 pounds with fuel, because like if you get there and you don't have enough fuel for the helicopters, what's the point? So yeah, we're weighing 155,000, and you're yanking it, and like, dude, you might have like Humvee in the back, like. It's insane. But it took a crew of 8 to do that. You've got 2 pilots, 2 navigators. Those are the officers. And then you've got a flight engineer. He's like he's the dude that's like chain smoking 24/7 because he's like in charge of the engines and he knows how shitty things are. And like every flight engineer is the same way. They're like the most nervous like chain smoker you've ever met because like they all came from maintenance. So so they know how shitty these planes are. Like, dude, we're flying planes that were built in like 1964. So like they've done their time twice. Right. You know what I mean?
Did you ever read what is it, Unbroken?
Mm-hmm.
Was the
With
Louis
Louis?
Zampanelli?
Yeah.
So, like I don't remember what was it I don't remember what they were, like the B.
Yeah, like B-17s or 52,
something like that. Where like more of them went down in like training than like.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a very now they've actually retired my bird back in like 16 or 17 right after I got out, but it's very analog. Like I mean, like you could look up in the plane and you could see the tubes that connect the pilot's controls to the rudder. So like we get shot at all the time, and literally one bullet hits just right, and you lose all flight controls. They're not hydraulic, like it's a manual. It's insane, very analog. but those pilots, man, they're incredible. It just most of those guys had done like 2,000 hours already, like in slicks, which is like regular C-130s, and then they came over to AFSOC. So I mean, to talk about some talent, man. And there's times I'd walk up on the flight deck like. We'd be like doing daytime flight or something, and so that 200-foot rule, there's like this little gauge that shows them like how far above the ground they are, and I'd walk up and they'd have their like hand over it and they're flying because like you didn't break the rule if you didn't see it, So and like dude, we'd be like knocking leaves off trees, just
sounds like a very military-esque thing to say.
Yeah.
If I didn't know about it, I mean, right. Breaking the rule. That's wild. And you doing that stuff like in like Florida?
Yeah, we'd fly. So
do they have like a restricted area where you guys did that stuff?
We'd be like right over people's houses. Now it was a published training route, so we had to stay like within our boundaries.
So people knew that like, hey, you're gonna be getting buzzed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like 4 nights a week.
I bet property values there were pretty low.
Oh well, so I got my training. We went to out on Albuquerque. It was like your initial qual or is your mission qual training where you first learn how to fly, right? And dude, I still say New Mexico is far more dangerous than Iraq because we got shot at like every night. Because like you're bussing these ranchers, man, and like you're like disturbing their cattle or their sheep or whatever, and they're just shooting rounds off at you all the time.
Oh, I know. There's something being that analog. It only takes one good bullet.
Well, we call it the golden BB, Well, because like, I mean, think about it.
So you have a name for it. That's awesome. That's not awesome, but that's fine.
You're flying on a powder keg. I mean, I don't know. We never went by gallons. We always went by pounds because it's better to weigh fuel in pounds. But I mean, dude, we'd be sitting on like 38,000 pounds of fuel, 36,000 pounds of fuel most of the time, and it's all in the wings. Right. So like easy place to shoot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're just flying on a giant powder keg.
Circle back to Tony's request for wicked stories, and you mentioned something about your plane being off balance or something, and you had a story for it. So
luckily this wasn't my plane, but right before I got out, I took a last minute deployment to Afghanistan. It was the first time I just wanted to go to Afghanistan because I've never been there before, and we had shifted.
Sounds like a good vacation spot.
Well, we'd been in Iraq so long, and then our unit shifted to Afghanistan. So I jumped on it, and I'm like supposed to get out in like 3 months. So it's like last minute, just a couple month tour. So I go over there, and I'm over there for like a support role. So like basically we'd have 2 fully capable crews flying at all times, and then like the third crew is just like there to help out, and then like if somebody would get sick, that way we don't lose mission effectiveness. And so I'm just there for a support role. I didn't plan on flying at all, but my buddies, they're out just flying a routine mission, man, and they picked up like I think it was like 78 Army Rangers, and they're moving them from one base to the other. Well, where they picked them up was like the super short runway, and so we do these things called like max effort takeoffs, and we practice them all the time. You basically have a load chart of like based on your weight, based on the winds, based on everything, all these factors, like this is the minimum takeoff you can accomplish. Well, in this particular situation, it was like the minimum was the realistic number, like within a couple feet. And the problem with these
an aircraft carrier.
yeah, basically. And to make it worse, like at the end of the runway, it was a flat runway, and then it had like a 10-foot drop, and then it flattened back out, and then there was like a parking lot. And so, the problem is like you run this toll data, it's based on like averages. So like 78 Army Rangers, you don't actually weigh them. You just go, 78 paratroopers weigh this much. Well, these numbers they're made in like World War II, man, and people are gotten bigger, and like Army Rangers are fucking huge.
Yeah, and
so
the
like
gear they're carrying,
I wasn't a loadmaster, but
quick.
I want to say it was like 250 pounds is like what they're allotted. Like, dude, they're walking in on 250 pounds without their gear, and they're carrying, like I said, most infantry guys carry 100 pounds, so like they're probably like 325, and so, dude, that means a big difference. And then like if you have a small wind change, that means a big difference. So these guys, it was actually one of my best friends, man. They take off. So they got a crew of 8. You got 78 Rangers on board. They take off. They catch that first little bubble of air, and then they clear the runway and literally just fell out of the sky. And so like now they're at like 25, 30 feet up, and they like literally bounce. And luckily there's like all these Humvees and shit parked there, but they bounce like over top of them. And then they take back off, and they're like, I think we're good, So they call back. Yeah.
That was close.
Because like, yeah. That's basically what it was. Like, So they call back to the base like, hey, we had a pretty rough takeoff. Like, we think we're good, but like we want to fly by and just like maybe if you guys could look at the landing gear and make sure it's good. So we're out there with like binoculars, like a monocular of like a night vision, trying to see what's going on.
Oh, Jesus.
And they do a low approach. They did like 3 low approaches, and like, dude, their landing gear is like mangled. Like it's just one side's good, the other side's just like hanging there. But like, dude, you're trashed. So no, we got like 80 some people on board
Not enough
no
parachutes.
gear. So they they have 8. Yeah, they have 8 parachutes. Yeah, so they literally they circled up there forever. We're like in the books trying to figure out like strategy, like what can we possibly do. They wound up dumping as much fuel as they possibly could, and they're like, all right, we're going to come in on fumes. So we had fire and rescue ready for them when they landed. They come in now, mind you, like Bagram is one of the busiest air bases or airfields in the world, because you've got all this traffic. So now we've got traffic shut down. You've got like 70 or 80 planes stacked up ready to land. And
this is in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
And this is a super busy air.
Well, yeah, it's like right in the middle of a war zone. So you've got like drones, you've got all these missions and helicopters, and they're trying to land. So they're all waiting on this. And so what they ended up doing, there's these like panels, you can like access the landing gear from inside the plane. So the loadmasters pulled the panels, and then they took chains and they built like basically strapped the gear with chains to try to provide extra support to it. Jesus and then they took the Rangers, all their bags, and they piled it up on top of the chains because they thought they were going to blow. And then they're like, luckily, dude, they had one of the best pilots I've ever flown with. He brings this bird in, dude, and he touches down. Like I said, the one gear is good. The other one immediately collapses, and he one wheels this thing like almost to a stop, and then it collapses finally, and he slides on his belly like, I don't know, half a mile, and it literally is like it's shooting rooster tails like, I don't know, almost a mile, like just because it's just like grinding the steel off the bottom of this plane. Yeah, grinds to a stop. It like ate like almost a foot off the bottom of the plane, just grinding on the runway.
Jesus Christ.
Everybody bails out, you know what I mean? Gets out of the plane because we thought it was going to blow up. And everybody bails, dude. Literally not one scratch on a single person. I'm like, dude, if you did that on like American Airlines and just asked people to quickly get off, like 3 people would die. Oh, you know what I mean? One person would have a heart attack. For sure. You know what I mean? Not a scratch,
just
dude.
from the experience in itself. That's fucking wild. Whoa.
Yeah, it was wild, man. Yeah, my buddy Drew, he wound up getting the plane tattooed on his arm, the tail number. But it was wild. He got out shortly after, too.
I bet. There's only so many straws you can pull until you get to the short one.
Well, that's kind of how I felt. I'm like, man, we've been chancing a lot of stuff. Because, like, towards the end of the war, it's bad enough you got people shooting at you, but, like, you're also trying not to kill yourself. Because, like, you're flying through mountains, man. And it's like, you know, like, we trained for it, but like there's so much task saturation that like it's real easy to plant a bird on the side of a mountain. Like, my commander, John Klein, when I was in, when he was a captain, he had, that's how long this war's been going on. He was a captain in Afghanistan fighting, and he made his way all the way to lieutenant colonel when I was in, and he's still fighting in the same fucking war, and now as our commander. First, he was like a mission pilot, and he planted a bird on the side of a mountain in Afghanistan. They actually wrote a book about it. It's a PJ book called None Braver, and a whole chapter is dedicated to saving him and his crew, but they literally just planted one on the side of a mountain. Luckily, it was like so snow covered that everyone walked away from it, but...
Jesus. I don't think people realize, unless you fully realize, which it takes a lot, how dangerous low flight.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is. Because the smallest thing.
Yeah. That's where, like, when you get up, the higher you get up, the more comfortable you'd feel. Because that low, I mean, like, it's like, you know, you only have two things in flight. You have altitude or airspeed. And if you don't have either, you're dead. Like, it just, and it's seconds. But... it was fun though.
It was a good time, he said.
Yeah, I don't know. I always had a pretty relaxed feeling towards it. Just because like I never wanted to go in the Navy, and I always thought like, man, being in a submarine and going down, or being on a boat and going down would be the worst. But you go down on a plane, it's over. Like we took a surface to air missile coming out of Baghdad one time. And I literally just went 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. Okay, we're good. Because if not, we'd be dead. You know what I mean? It's like that fast. You have like 2 to 3 seconds, depending on if it's an RPG or whatever SAM it is. So it's seconds, and then there's no one walking away. You're not gonna know. You're just not gonna be here. So
did it miss?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We performed some defensive maneuvers, and it was a miss. But it's you're either here or you're not. It's not like I have to like be at the bottom of the ocean for a week. Fuck all that.
And just knowing. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
Ooh, making me fucking sweat thinking about it. Do you think is it something about compartmentalizing in that environment? Like, is that something that like, do you feel like you had prior, or is it just something that you kind of learned that like, hey, like it is what it is? So
for me, you're so... First of all, when you first go through training, you suck so bad at your job. Like you suck, and you're just trying not to suck. And like you're so task saturated with not sucking, you don't know what anybody else is doing. Like all you want to do is get better, because like you're dealing with air sickness. No one gets through training without being sick. Like I never puked, but I had like passive air sickness where like you're completely debilitated. You can't function because you're flying, like out in Albuquerque. It's like driving 250 miles an hour down like a dirt road that's like, like washout road. Because that's because like all those thermals are coming off the desert. So you're riding those thermals, and it's like the most turbulent.
So low? Is that why?
It's just pure turbulence. So like the whole time you're like getting shook up and you're backwards. The plane's like 110 degrees inside of it. And you're
yanking and banking in the
You're
school
yanking
bus.
and banking. You have like no clue where you're at. The lights coming like in these weird spots. So you're sick so bad. And so then like you're trying to fight through that. So
now, is that specific like to your job because you were backwards? Is that like
everybody's sick?
Oh
yeah, at any one time, dude. Like this guy's puking, that guy's puking, that guy's puking. Like it's just part of training. Like that's why I never wanted to be like. They offered me a position at the schoolhouse, and I was like, hell no. It's like 3 years of just being around people puking.
That's
all
why
day.
you're so good at puking now.
Yeah,
because you've done so much.
Yeah, but so everybody's sick. So. But you're like so task saturated with like trying to do your job so you don't disappoint everybody else that it carries, and then like it just never changes. Like you're so focused on not screwing up that you forget about everything else. Like that's all you're trying to do is like, I don't want to screw this up because like everybody's counting on me to be part of this team, and like that, at least that's how I never felt the pressure because I was so focused on like doing my job. So I would imagine that's for a lot of people. Like you just don't want to let your team down, and so you don't even think about the external threats.
I think maybe we need more of that in just the world in general.
We need a lot of things.
Because it seems like I will say this as far as just normal people that I know or interact with. There's the folks that have been in the military for the most part, for the most part, are just some of the. It's funny because they're extremely laid back, but at the same time can be intense in like these weird ranges. But for the most part, they're just like, "What you guys worried about?"
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's what would you say would be one of your biggest takeaways from the experiences that you've had there?
That's a good question. Just not even flying, just like the what we called like the dick dance of the military in general. You just spend. I remember like MEPS was like the big thing. So you're in processing for the day, and it's like all day long. It could easily be done in 2 hours, but it's all day, and it's like waiting in line, and they call your name, and then waiting in line, and they call your name. And like, then you realize like, that's how this is going to be for 4 years. Like it's all that every single day is like, just like out of your control, waiting to do something. And like, so then when you get out of that environment, it's like, oh, okay, we got to wait. Like, okay, I've been doing this for 4 years. Like, so like, just like accepting like that, like you have no control, and like some things are just not, you have no power over. And like, cause you're like pretty much powerless. I remember it burnt me real bad. Me and Corey had planned to meet up and go to this NASCAR race, right? And like, I was going to drive up from Florida. He was going to drive down. A couple other buddies were going to come, and we're broke down on the runway because we were like doing an op, and we are going to fly home, and then I was going to jump in my car and drive. We're like broke down, and we're waiting on this part, and I'm just like watching the time, and I just quickly realized like we're not getting this thing fixed, and so we're just sitting on a flight line. I know we're not going anywhere. Everybody knows we're broke, and you're powerless. And like so many days and nights of that, you just get like kind of numb to the like. So like you see these people like so bent out of shape over like the dumbest things. And it's like, it's gonna happen,
man. After, yeah, we almost got hit by a missile, but you know, sitting on the runway, that's what it is. It's like, that's the perspective is.
It wears you down, you know, like you just that hurry up and wait. I don't know. It forges you a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's different. I get what you mean by wearing you down, but from what I've seen, it seems more like a forged.
Yeah,
like you said, rather than a defeatedness.
Yeah, not like that. Just it more like defeats your. You don't get it all bent out of shape over it. You know what I mean? You just succumb to the like. You're gonna ride this wave, and it takes you where it takes you, man. Like whatever.
Well, like you said, it seems to be working out for you so far.
Hopefully it keeps going. I mean, it's been pretty good. I don't know. The couple times I was left with decisions, it didn't work out so good.
We go back to sketchy things that happened to you in the military. Is that what you're saying? That were out of your control?
Oh, man.
That's classic, Dusty. Man, so you gonna take the rucking and turn it into a big old thing?
As big as I can grow it. I don't know.
What's your future plans? You've been almost dead, flying 200 feet above the ground, yanking a bank in a school bus. Now you're putting yourself through pain and carrying weight around for no good reason except to not die at an early age. What's the future look like?
I don't know. I really want to get my bolts. I want to try to do those 3 events in one. After that, I don't. There's some other events past that, but I don't think I got it in me. But we'll see. But I definitely want to earn my bolts. After that, I don't know. I love the events, but they get kind of tiresome as far as like the boot camp mentality of it. Like,
been there, done that.
Yeah, like all right, yeah, I know. Like, just tell me I'm going to do PT. Don't like make a reason to. But definitely want to get my bolts, but I want to do it like for something kind of historic. I want to make sure the event's right, and I don't know. I want to keep growing the club. I like to see like it's not really a numbers thing, but like I'd like to like get other people involved in like the event side of it, and like kind of use it as a kickoff to help them train, like be able to put them, you know, like have a gear day where we go through and like say, hey, like this works for me, or this is how I pack, and like try to like farm it out and like make other people involved. I don't know. I just feel like it could change a lot of people's lives that are like looking for something. I just think that like if you're just going to the gym, some people can do that, right? Like you can do that, she can do that, but like most people can't just go to the gym and like work out. I think if people had a sport, they would do much better. And it could be like the dumbest thing. Like it could be, I'm going to run a 5K this year, or I'm going to play intramural basketball. But I just feel like there's, if you have a sport that you're trying to be better at, the gym comes so much easier because now you have a reason to go to the gym, and it gets you, you know, I don't drink on Friday nights because I got to go ruck Saturday morning. And like, just working out is not enough. Most people don't have that kind of motivation. So I just think people need to get a sport, and like if it's rucking, that's great. If it's something else, that's cool too. But I just think that would help people out a lot more if they had a sport.
Well, to me, it sounds like what you're saying is building a community.
Yeah,
more than you know. The sport and the obviously, as we've seen in the past year or so, you know, people could do with a little bit more being healthy.
Yeah, yeah.
But it sounds like you're just trying to build a community.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if you know who Jim Windler is, but he's always been an inspiration of mine. He's a like power lifter turned whatever, but he's wrote a couple books on training and stuff. And he to paraphrase, he says something like, "It's hard to have a bad day at work when you can't breathe at the top of a hill sprint." And like literally, I've taken that because like I don't care how bad of a day it is, when you're at the top of a hill with a 60-pound sandbag on your back and you're seeing stars, like you aren't thinking about work. You aren't thinking about Debbie and what she did. Like you're trying to breathe. And like, it definitely changes your perspective on life. Cause like things, I'm just trying to train, man. Like shit's going on at work. Yeah. Like Austin will call me all heated about something. I'm like, what does that have to do with training? Cause like, if it ain't training, I don't give a shit. Like we'll figure it out, man. But like, you're fucking with my chi, you know? Like,
right? Like it seems like you're constantly trying to find something more difficult to just focus on.
Yeah, well.
So it's like, everything else isn't so bad.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. And I think that would do a lot for where we are now. Like, I think people need to start looking inward a little bit more, you know, not to make it political, but like, if everyone focused a little bit more on how, like, on themselves, not to be selfish, but like focus on yourself and like where you could be, like maybe the whole ship kind of, you know, rises up a little bit.
I hear that.
But
I think it's nice for is it the Bataan? Is that the one that you guys just did?
Yeah,
Bataan?
the Death March, yeah.
I think it was nice that because that was just at your house, 5 people showed up? It was just nice that you gave a quick, hey, this is why we're doing this, and with the whole community aspect, it gives you a reason to do it, right? Like it gives you that motivation for people who maybe couldn't join the military or, you know, physically wasn't able to do X, Y, and Z, but spending an hour of your time to, you know, what word is it, like, or whatever, is just, it was just nice that you knew about it. You gave like a quick, hey, this is why we're doing this. You know, you can show up and just do the work, but to like think about it while you're doing it is
I
really,
try to
really cool.
I try to research, like, so like Mannion, Travis Mannion, I took some time and kind of read about his life and his accomplishments and stuff. And like Bataan, I read a World War II book on it. And like, I try to do that with all my events. Like, I'll try to, like I said, the event itself isn't as much to me as the training that goes into it. So I try to like pair it with a book. Like so we're going to do that event in the cold, and I couldn't find very many good books on Bastogne, but I read this book called Endurance, and it was about this Ernest Shackleton, and like he basically got stranded on an iceberg for like a year in Antarctica. Jeez. And like literally it's mind changing, because you're doing this event and you're like, dude, if this guy could live on an iceberg for a year, I could make it through 12 hours in Columbus, Ohio. And it like just scales everything. And then you kind of feel like a giant pussy, but like, that's what it's for, you know?
So I could stop at the Taco Bell. Right
yeah.
There.
Yeah. It was terrible because I see my hotel as we're doing all that. But yeah, so I try to like embrace the event, and you know, if it's a hero wild, like we should know who the hero is and like why we're doing it. Like, right. Yeah, anybody can go do Murph, or like Nakoa said he did Murph, but that's bullshit. But
well, and it's scalable. I've seen people post on the Wayne County Ruck Club, like, oh, I can't do this, I'm not fit enough. No, it's scalable. Yeah, you obviously have to be able to walk a few miles.
Yeah.
But your hero wads, like you can come up with a way to scale it. Like so you can still participate. So I think that it should be known that like the Sundays are totally scalable.
Oh yeah,
You know,
100%.
Kai's 9, Brooklyn 7, they do it, and the hero wads like they can be scaled back for any I think that it would be really good for so many people.
And they're pretty fun. We get the music going and usually some beers afterwards. The speaking of scale, the Manion wad, I remember. So it was like, I think it's like 7 rounds. You ruck a quarter mile and then you do 29 ruck squats. But I was like, I can't remember if it's like regular squats or just like body weight or ruck squats. So I'm like trying to find it, and then I found the original CrossFit one, and it's like you're supposed to do 29 squats with 135 pounds 7 times. I'm like, oh my god.
Is it regular squat, like overhead squats? Or...
Just regular squats,
Oh, okay.
but like 7 rounds of 29 reps with 135. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll do it with my rucksack, because I was looking for a reason to do it like without one, you know. And then I'm like, all right, if these guys are doing it with 135, I'll do it with my ruck. But it's, you know, it's infinitely scalable. Like a lot of times I'll bring my sandbag when you're not supposed to, just to, because if I get some people there that are newer, I don't want to like blow them out of the water,
Right.
you know,
because that doesn't do anybody any good.
yeah. And if I see myself start getting like kind of ahead of schedule or something, I'll try to make it a little bit harder to just so we all kind of finish at the same time. And yeah, we try to make it fun, have some beers after. We did kegs and eggs the other day, so. But not to get too far off topic, but I did bring a gift. I was told that since it's my first one, I'll let you open it.
Oh boy, what is it?
So I know you're a knife guy.
Shit. I like knives. Yeah, I am.
I was told that you should bring a gift on your first podcast. So
you don't. Yeah, that's
that
not
is
necessary.
an Air Force survival knife. But they're more commonly called a bolt knife. So if you look, it's a full tang, and it's actually got a bolt. So you feel how heavy it is. Mm-hmm. So that's what we used to learn in SEER school, and it's used literally for everything. So you can it's built, it's like overly built, so you can use it.
You can't break that.
No, we split firewood with it. Literally anything. So
yeah, I mean you could bend it, but that's
that's it.
You can see it's full. That's all the way full wrap there. Is that leather?
Yeah.
The handle? That's pretty sweet.
So, made in USA.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's standard issue in like any aircrew survival kit. So
is that like a ferro blocker, or just that's a Samsung? Okay, nice. That's sweet. That's super cool, man. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Put it up there on the show. That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. Rogan just gets like animal testicles and stuff.
Right.
That's like
animal dick bones.
Yeah.
I didn't have any laying around.
You didn't
I
have
would
any
have brought one.
fossilized
I tried to
dick
find
bones
one.
floating around. That's awesome, man.
But, yeah, I spent a lot of time with one of those. Not that particular one, obviously, but
that's super cool.
Yeah, out of everything I did though, I always go back to SEER, man. I think it was probably the coolest month of my life.
So explain that so people can understand what that, because I hear SEER school a lot and everything, but what is that? Like what?
Yeah, so obviously it stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. It's designed so you kind of have to check 2 boxes to get into it. You have to be at a higher than average risk of capture, and you also have to have information that if it got out, it would be detrimental to the military. So if you check those 2 boxes, which aircrew guys do, and a lot of people do, but you get to go to SEER school. So it's at least when I was in, it was 28 days, and it's a mix of like classroom and outdoor training. And it's up in like Spokane, Washington, like up in the, I can't remember the national forest, but they have like a restricted area for training up there. And it was for me, being a country boy and like growing up in the woods, it was the greatest time of my life. So I literally just came out of basics. So I'm in like
this is the idea, because of you're an airman, the idea of going down in like a war zone and enemy territory type deal. So like, is it like the idea is to like survive and
so basically they go, there's a good chance you're going to get shot down at some point in your career, and we want to make sure you know how to handle yourself.
Gotcha.
So it literally starts at survival and evasion. So you spend a couple days in the classroom, you learn about so much knowledge, but like what you can eat, what you can't eat, like how to get water, and you're learning it through everything you would have on your person if you went down during a tactical flight. So how to, like, if it's a snowy environment, how to take your parachute and get water out of it, like how to survive in the desert with a parachute, just all these things. And then you also learn how to evade. So like how to like read a map, like an actual map, like a topo. You know what I mean?
Like my Google Maps on my phone.
Yeah. So you have a compass and a topo, and how to align it. How to find magnetic north and do all this stuff, and how to use ranger beads, and so you learn all of this stuff, and then you enact it out in the field. And I mean, so we went out in March. It was March of 2007. So you've got like 8 foot of snow on the ground. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I'd never been in big mountains before. Like these are mountains.
What's the Rocky side?
Yeah. It's
mountains.
legit. So it's just you, your team. There's like 10 or 12 of us, and one instructor, and he's the only one that even knows where you're at. And you're just out there for days at a time, and you're navigating the terrain. He's teaching you how to set snares, like everything you see like on Alone, basically, or like a show like that. You're setting snares,
but it's real.
Yeah,
and not like a camera crew that's like right there.
You're not naked.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Could have been.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah. So you're just going through all that, and they're teaching you how to evade, like. So they're basically simulating, your plane just crashed, you grabbed everything you could grab, and you're going, and like say, it was in the mountains of Afghanistan, and the Taliban, they know where you crashed, they're after you, what are you going to do? So you're going through all that, and then you get into the actual resistance and escape portion where they did capture you. How are you going to handle yourself? And then you go back in the classroom, and they're like, we're going to learn about... They do like case studies of all these like famous survivals that people have got captured and then made it through, like McCain and all those guys. Right. And you read about all the torture, all the interrogations, the beatings, all that stuff. And then they teach you how to handle yourself so that if you're put in that situation, and they put you through a little bit of it before they teach you, just so you can see how badly you do. Right. And you do very, very badly. And then they put you back out in the field, and you do it all over again. And it was just incredible. I mean, it was intense, you know what I mean? Because they're allowed to put their hands on you, and they, I don't want to give too much away, but they do some pretty gnarly stuff. But I mean, just out there with your rucksack on, man. And that's where I first fell in love with rucking, because like we're out there with just our rucks, and we're just like living off the land, and we're going like 10 clicks a day, just navigating and hiking, and just it's just awesome, man. But
back to the roots.
Yeah, that's where that's where I said I left a little bit. So those guys are called seared instructors, and that's their whole career field, is just teaching survival skills and living off the land. And I almost tried out a couple times, and I just like stopped myself.
Why?
I don't know. It was intense. I mean, I wasn't worried about the physical side. It was just like you're like, it's like 6 months of school. You're spend almost the entire time in the field. And like, I had a lot of stuff going on, like personal life at the time. And it was like, I don't know, but hindsight, I would have loved to at least taken a stab at it if I could do it all over again. But the rucking checks the box for that.
Right.
But those guys live the dream.
You can never go back and change it, but you're where you are.
I mean, I'm glad I am where I am, for sure. Like,
right.
I wouldn't change a thing, but I always just thought like I just kind of wanted to try my hand, see if I could do it more than like I wanted to do it. I just want to see if I could do it. But
it sounds brutal.
If they ever offered it again for a civilian, I'd totally sign up for 28 days. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that most people don't have any. Because I sure as fuck don't. I had no idea about that shit. Like you talked about it being gnarly, but like that's you have to train for what the possibilities are, right? Like you can't sit in the classroom and go, "Oh, this is what could happen," like, and then expect to perform.
Right. So they have to put you. I mean, they put you right in the middle of it, and it's like, I don't know if this is legal. You know what I mean? You're like going through like, and they, sleep deprivation, all that stuff. And, but there's so much to it that you don't realize. Like give you a good example. So you're flying on that, like we're in Iraq, right? We're doing a combat mission. Well, we're flying close to the Iran border. This is just hypothetical. We get shot down, middle of the night. We crash land. Maybe we flew for like 5 or 10 minutes before we crashed. Next thing you know, we get swept up. Okay, well, who has us? Because that's going to change everything about how I react to the situation.
Right.
Because maybe it's, Iraqi soldiers. Maybe it's the Taliban, or I guess Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Maybe we accidentally crash landed in Iran because we were flying along the border, and now we're held by a government that is somewhat friendly. And if I kill this guy to escape, now I've committed
not so friendly
murder
anymore.
Yeah. So like, if it's Al-Qaeda, I'm going to do anything I can to escape because they don't play by any rules.
Right.
If it's like Iraqi government at the time, in 2003, well, then I'm a prisoner of war and I have to follow all the rules of being a prisoner of war because if I kill someone, I've now committed a war crime. If I'm in Iran, now it's like a hostage situation. So like all of these rules you have to try to figure out, like, and so it's very convoluted.
I haven't even thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's more than just surviving when you go down in some place. Because that's another thing too. Like before semi recently, you don't realize how small some of those countries are over there.
Oh yeah.
You see it on the map. You go, okay, like all right, we're Syria. That's a whole fucked up thing. Like, and there's like here's Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran. You see these like countries on the map, but you don't realize like some of these places are like smaller than some of the states.
Yeah.
In the United. Like,
yeah,
so
and
it's
you're
like,
flying at 250 knots.
so you have like these states where you could be over multiple countries easily at a time, and they're all trying to fucking kill each other.
Yeah, and you have no clue. And then
or it could be a civilian that like have you ever listened to any of like Marcus Luttrell? Like his conversations where like he tells like when you listen to him, like there's one thing that they'll like to watch the Lone Survivor movie, but they're like to listen to like him talk about it.
Yeah, Red Wings.
And it's like he could have that the civilian that or whatever that
could have shot him.
Could have shot him. Either one of them could have shot each other, but like somehow they just like man.
I think the general population would be shocked at how many like friendly fire situations actually happen.
I think the general population would be shocked at a lot.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because I mean, I'm already shocked today. I don't know. There's my brain's just.
Oh man,
it's awesome.
It was a wild ride, man. I think I told Tony this story before, but dude, I was like a daisy fresh rookie, and I like just got out of flight school because like it's like just like any other job. You go through training, you think you're top notch, and then you get to your actual like duty station, and you realize you don't know a goddamn thing, and like. So, you get to your duty station, you fly with the instructor a couple times to like show you the local area, and he, basically beats you up and says you suck. And so like shortly after that, I'm doing a tail swap, so air squadrons do a lot different than like a typical infantry unit. They're going to ramp up as a unit over like maybe 4 or 5 months. They're all going to deploy for a year or whatever. Then they're going to come back, ramp down, and then that cycle is going to keep going on. Well, like the 9th, they're like the most deployed unit in AFSOC. At least they were when I was there. So what they do is they just leave planes over there, and they're constantly deployed as a unit, and then you just replace the people that are flying there. So it's just a constant rotation the entire time. So like they'd been over there since 2001, and they were still going there when I left. So occasionally those planes need like maintenance that you can't do in a desert environment. So like they do the best they can to patch them together over there, but eventually they need to come back to like depot level maintenance where they strip the whole plane down and rebuild it. So what we would do is we'd take a fresh plane over and bring an old one back. So it's like an 8-day trip, it's great. It's a great trip if it goes well. Like you're just bouncing along countries the whole time. So 2 or 3 days we get over there. I'd never even been to Iraq before, so this is my first time in country. We land, we get the other plane, start flying back. I think we go to Suda Bay first. Take off from Suda Bay, and we're headed to where the hell are we going? I think we're going to England, and we're flying along. So we've got our crew of 8, and then we have like all these maintenance guys because they're like, you're breaking down like every day. So because you remember this plane is like it's beat to shit. It's been in Iraq the whole time. It's got sand in every orifice, and it's flying in it.
Sand in every orifice is never a good, never a good descriptor.
No,
yeah, that's going to be core here pretty soon in California.
I mean, it's a 1964 bird. It's a daily driver. Okay, it's like you have your daily driver.
1984 Honda. How dare you?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So, and then we're taking like the northern route back because that was like more friendly with the winds. So you're going straight from the desert to like, well, we were headed like towards like Iceland. So like the seals in these planes, they don't do well going from the temperatures extremes, right? So we take off. And up to that point, the everything was going great, and so the C-130 is a 4-engine platform, and so it's like left to right, like 1, 2, 3, 4 is how they numbered. But my window faces like number 3 and then number 4, and so we've got all of our crew, and then we've got all the maintenance guys, like 15, 16, and then we have like a whole, like an ISU 90, which is like this giant cargo container full of like, just like commonly needed parts. So we're flying along 155,000 pounds, and we lose the number 4 engine. I don't even remember why we had to shut it down, but like something was like outside the parameters. So like the rule of thumb is like, it's okay to shut one engine down, but only God can shut the second one down because like flying on 2 engines with that much weight is like not advised. Right. So, no big deal. Like we shut engines down all the time. So we shut an engine down, no big deal. And then we're flying along and like we just get to like the French Alps and like they're terrifying looking, just like looking at them from above. Like they just look desolate, very sharp.
Rocky
yeah. It's like
Rocky.
Terrible. And so of course, like as soon as you lose an engine, you're doing these calculations. It's called like your 2-engine service ceiling, which is like if we lose another engine, like how high can we fly based on the power of 2 engines? And our 2-engine service ceiling is below the mountains. So like, so it'd be pertinent to keep the turbine going. Well, at this time, dude, we lose our anti-icing ability.
Oh no,
which is bad.
It's cold up there.
Especially it's cold up there. So like I'm looking at number 3 engine, and it's like slowly forming ice all around the intake. And the concern is we didn't know if the anti-icing was working for the belly because like the belly of the plane has it too. You can't see that. Well, so you take a 1/4 inch of ice over that much, like you'll literally just fall out of the sky. So we have no clue. And now this is like a real slow progression, right? And I don't know. I don't know. So we have this comm system in our plane where I can switch it to only the guys in the back, which is like me and the load masters. So I switch it to the back, and like we're having multiple problems with this plane. And I switch it to the back, and I'm like kind of calm, There's this old load master. He's an evaluator. He's got like 5,000 hours. Salty old dude. His name's Rico. And it's just me and this, because the other load master's brand new too. And I'm like, hey, Rico, like scale of 1 to 10, dude. Like, how bad is this? Because like I could tell by the flight crew, like they were worried.
Starting to get uptight.
and he's like super chill. He's like, I don't know, man. It's like an 8. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, okay. So like, you've seen much worse than this then. And he's like, oh no, dude, this is the most fucked up shit I've ever seen.
God damn it, Rico.
I know.
Held that one
I'm like, oh, dude. So at this point, I'm fucking terrified, right? So I'm looking at this number 3 engine. I'm just watching the ice grow on it.
Oh, Jesus.
And so we're like running through all the procedures.
You're in the submarine at this point.
We all have,
now you're in your own submarine.
I start
fucking sink.
Yeah, I start putting my fucking parachute on. The maintenance guys are like, "What's up?" I was like, "That's fine. It's fine," because they don't have one.
Just trying it out. Oh, Jesus.
So we went so far as we ran the emergency procedures to ditch the cargo. Because we were just going to drop it out the back.
Lose weight.
And it didn't meet the parameters, like the height and stuff was wrong, so we couldn't ditch it. So we're like ready to start throwing stuff out the windows. It's like, it's that bad. And we're terrified. And everyone's trying to be cool, but like the crew was pretty new except for a couple, like I think the pilot, the lead pilot was pretty experienced.
You're just transferring an aircraft, so it's probably like you could put a newish crew on it because all you're doing is just taxi and shit.
It was a bunch of dumbasses with like one guy in charge, and so it gets to the point, dude. We're like, you're basically clawing for air. Like you could tell, like the plane was like just grasping in air as you're going through. And dude, I'm shitting my pants. And I don't like heights anyways, as I told you. And at this point, the pilot goes, okay, we need to start looking for alternate landings because like we're not making it to England. Like we need to find a place to land. And so the navigators are finding stuff. And so they find this, like the only runway around is in Dijon, France. And it's like the southern tip of France. And they're like, pilot, we got a runway, but like I don't think it was ever built to hold C-130s. It's like a fighter runway. And they're like, the pilot, I'll never forget, without even missing a beat, he goes, I don't give a shit. Air Force will pay for it. And so we decide, like, at this point, we declare an emergency. We're going to go in for a landing. And we're literally, like, the navigators are looking up the composition of the runway because we don't think, like, when we land, it'll support the weight. Like, we're going to sink into it.
Yeah, it's one thing to break a runway, but it's another thing to, like, sink into it.
Yeah, so we did, as we basically landed, and as we landed, we're like pushing, like, you know how like you get like the stops on like 30 where the semi stop and like the weight, we're like pushing the concrete into the ground. And so we land immediately surrounded by the French military. Right. This whole thing goes down, you know, whatever. We wound up being broke there for like a week. And then, and then when we finally get the plane fixed, we have to take off like a max effort takeoff with like no gear or fuel on board to get off because the runway's so damn short. Like it was never built for us.
Right.
It's wild, man. But you know, I told you about the engineers. That engineer that was on that plane, we got back to Florida and he never flew again.
He said, fucking him out.
Done. Never flew.
Oh.
Yeah, after that, I was so rattled. Like nothing else really worried me.
And that is why you're as cool as a fucking cucumber. Dusty. Oh man, I appreciate this very much. Anytime you feel like fucking throwing some beers back and just telling stories just for fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah. I think we're pushing 3 hours.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like am I.
Yeah. I won't keep you too much longer. So thanks, man. That was, I don't know what to say.
Yeah. If I could.
Yeah, go for it. What? Yeah.
I do want to thank Holly because without her, I couldn't do all this stuff. So she keeps it together for me. Love you.
Amen.
Thanks, D.
Whoa. That's intense.
Thank you for hanging out with us on this episode.
Appreciated as always. And if you have any questions, comments, ideas, or guest suggestions, leave them in the comments after you subscribe to the channel or visit chroniccuriosity.com to get in contact with us.
And the store, which you can pick yourself up some fantastically curious merchandise.
Until next time. That's it.